Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call to order this District of Clearwater regular council meeting for Tuesday, August 20th at 2 p.m. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are fortunate to be gathering together on the unceded territory of the Tsimp people who have been caretakers of this land since time immemorial. Introduction of late items. Do we have any late items to add to today's agenda?
Yes, Acting Mayor McKenzie, we do have one item at least, 16.13, just discussion around the September 3rd council meeting and whether or not that is necessary.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Sim?
Two for the in-camera, and they would be under 91.2. Or what did I say that was? Hang on. Let me see it again. It's under the category that's currently for the in-camera.
Okay, and that was 2. Thank you.
Thank you. 2, thank you.
Thank you. Any more? Okay, moving along. Adoption of the agenda. There's a recommendation for the August 20th, 2024 regular council meeting to be approved as presented.
Moved.
Moved by Councillor Herring. Second by Councillor Frizzle. All those in favor? And that is passed. Thank you. Declaration of no conflict of interest or pecuniary interest. Are any declarations around the table? Councillor Sim?
16.6.
16.6. Thank you. TNRD Electoral Area A Director, I see he's in the house. Director Sow, do you have anything to speak to the public here?
Thank you, Your Worship. It's been a while since I've
Step on up.
into the mic for the record. Thank you, Your Worship. It's been a while since I've came to your council meetings. I've been keeping up to date on your YouTube meeting minutes and everything, and I just wanted to express my gratitude to Mayor Blackwell, who's absent today, but and to council as well for sharing advocacy items such as the BC Transit centralization recently. So and Mayor Blackwell agrees. So I think always an advocacy. 4,000 combined residents of Area A and DOC. It usually speaks higher volume. So yeah, I look forward to, and other items such as with Councillor Herring. I look forward to visiting River Road with you, pick some rocks, and see what we can do. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, we have no delegations or presentations today. Adoption of the regular council minute meetings from July 9th, 2024. Is there any errors or omissions? Thank you. Moved by Councillor Herring. Second by Councillor Matheson. All those in favor? That is passed. Thank you. We have no committee minutes to adopt. Moving on to development and zoning. Mr. Prime, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Acting Mayor McKenzie. We do have Linda Perotti, TNRD planner, with a presentation on this rezoning application.
Okay, thank you.
Just before we get there, I just wanted to make mention to council, this is the first opportunity that you've had to see an amendment come forward without a public hearing. So that's why you see this for first, second, third, and adoption. So there's no public hearing because it conforms to the OCP. So this is a new process in place. I know the acting mayor and I spent quite a bit of time going over this morning because it is something new. So typically you'd see first and second reading, then scheduling a public hearing, and then adoption. But because of the new provincial requirements, there is no public hearing required, and council can deal with this with one meeting.
Perfect. Thanks for the explanation on that.
Hello, good afternoon, Acting Mayor and Council. Everyone can hear me?
Yes, you bet.
Wonderful. My name is Linda Perotti. I am one of the planners here at the TNRD. And thank you to Mr. Johnson for that lovely introduction of the new provincial legislation. This is also the first time that I've brought forward a report for first, second, and third reading without a public hearing. So exciting day all around. The purpose of this application is to zone 11 properties on the north side of Dutch Lake that used to be governed by a land use contract. 10 of these properties are part of Strata Plan K479 on Lake Summit Road, and the other is a 23.3 hectare or 57.65 acre fee simple vacant lot. On June 30th of this year, the land use contract was terminated. Therefore, these properties do not currently have any zoning. Bylaw number 302, 2024 would zone strata plan K479 R1 residential single family and duplex zone and the fee simple lot RL1 rural zone. In the early 1970s, the province allowed municipalities to form land use contracts with landowners as a way to regulate or develop land. But in 2014, they announced land use contracts be terminated by the end of June 2024. The other land use contracts in Clearwater were repealed when zoning bylaw number 133 was adopted in 2016, but this land use contract on Dutch Lake remained. The Dutch Lake land use contract envisioned a resort-style multifamily development, but only 10 strata lots were created. This strata is now an established subdivision with single-family dwellings, garages, and common property. Earlier this year, planning staff connected with a representative from the strata and the owner of the large vacant lot to learn what exists, any future plans, and determine the most suitable zoning while being mindful of the suburban residential designation in the official community plan. As the strata is already developed as a low-density residential street, planning staff recommend the R1 zone as it renders the least amount of non-conforming situations, and the setback requirements would allow modifications such as an addition to the house or simply covering a deck. The current owner of the fee simple lot indicated they have no intention of developing multifamily dwellings or the vision in the land use contract, but did ask about the option to subdivide for family members in the future. As this property has never been developed, planning staff recommend the RL1 zone here. The minimum parcel size in RL1 is 4 hectares or 10 acres, so it does afford the possibility of subdividing. Depending on roadways, encumbrances, and other technical considerations identified through the subdivision application process, up to 4 or 5 lots could be considered. To avoid uncertainty and nonconformity, planning staff recommend that appropriate and up-to-date zoning be put in place to accommodate the subject properties by proceeding as outlined in the recommendation. Thank you. That concludes my formal part of the presentation.
Do we have any questions for Ms. Parati? Councillor Sim.
Thanks very much. It was a really good report, and I think it was very helpful to understand that much of this was implemented because of the provincial legislation for June the 30th. So just to clarify that the owners within K479, so the 10 properties, they would come together, they would now be zoned R1. Would they still be under a strata formation?
Oh, yes. This only
Okay.
changes the zoning on the property. This does not change their ownership or their strata designation or anything like that.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Councillor Herring.
Yeah, thanks for your report. Just out of curiosity, what would be the advantages of rezoning this property as RL1 versus as country residential in terms of future subdivision potential and alignment with the OCP?
So the strata development, we would not recommend zoning that to CR1 because it would immediately render the lots non-conforming. Most of these lots would not meet the minimum parcel size in CR1. CR1 does envision larger parcels. So either 1 acre if it's serviced by a community water system, or 2.5 acres where it's not serviced by a community water system. So the strata would not be advantageous to zone it to CR1. As for the larger undeveloped lot, it could be zoned CR1 depending on what the vision would be for the owner. So if the owner had suggested that they wanted to develop smaller lots on there or more lots on there, we could have discussed CR1. But the message that I received was that she just wanted to make sure there was enough land to divide it between her children. And based on the RL1 zone, there would be. So that's why RL1 was chosen.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Frizzle?
I thank you for your report. I noticed in the report that there was a building permit that was denied because of how it was allocated. Would this would you be able to authorize a building permit for minor additions with this zoning?
Yes. So I don't know what the status of that building permit was. I do know that planning could not sign off on it because it did not meet the setbacks of the multifamily zone, right? But with the R1 zone, should it be rezoned, the owner could come in, reapply for that building permit, or ask for it to be reconsidered, and it would meet the setbacks in the R1 zone.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Sim.
I'll move the recommendation.
Okay. Seconder?
I'll second it.
Second by Councillor Matheson. Okay. District of Clearwater bylaw number 302, 2024. A bylaw to amend District of Clearwater zoning bylaw number 133. Whereas the province has terminated land use contract agreement bylaw number 344-130-9, 1976 under section 5503B of the Local Government Act. And whereas the proposed changes in uses of land and buildings are deemed advisable, and whereas the zoning amendment conforms to the District of Clearwater official community plan, now therefore, Council of the District of Clearwater in open meeting assembled enacts as follows. This bylaw may be cited as District of Clearwater zoning bylaw number 133, amendment bylaw number 302, 2024. Okay. And all those in favor? Thank you. And there's a second and third recommendations here. Someone like to move number 2? Moved by Councillor Sim. Second by Councillor Bratton. District of Clearwater bylaw number 302, 2024, a bylaw to amend District of Clearwater zoning bylaw number 133. Pardon me? Be read a third time. Thank you. Okay, District of Clearwater bylaw number 302, 2024. Bylaw to amend District of Clearwater zoning bylaw number 133. And just to clarify, I can leave it at that?
Yep.
For that one? Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. And we do have a third recommendation.
I'll move that zoning amendment bylaw number 302 be adopted.
Moved by Councillor Frizzle, second by Councillor Bratton. Those in favor?
Nope. Read it by title.
Oh, sorry. District of Clearwater bylaw number 302, 2024. A bylaw to amend District of Clearwater zoning bylaw number 133. All those in favor? And that is adopted. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, moving on to unfinished business. We have no tabled or deferred items. We'll move along to 11.3, public art policy, the public art policy draft, and there's a staff report on that.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Council had an opportunity to review this at the last meeting, and you wanted some time to get some public consultation and some feedback. We don't have anything additional to add at this time other than the fact that it is up for consideration of adoption, and that doesn't preclude Council from producing some amendments if you wish to do so.
Do we have any questions from Council? Councillor Sim.
So I've got a couple, and I first of all want to reiterate that it's so great that this policy has come forward with such a wide lens. a lot of work was done, and it gives us a lot to discuss and possibly amend. The first thing I'll talk about would be the proposed art policy. The public art program will benefit the community through strengthening our identity and our civic pride, enhancing public spaces for residents and visitors, demonstrating clear belief in the importance of culture, heritage, and creative, and leaving a lasting legacy for future generations. In the policy statement, art should leave a lasting legacy, and yet throughout the report, it talks about when projects are no longer necessarily relevant. So I'm wondering if we could maybe remove that from the policy introduction, would be my suggestion. There was in the report, it was cited that Tofino was one of the communities that was recognized for some of their work on the art policy. So my suggestion for revision is the public art program will benefit the community through strengthening our identity and civic pride, enhancing public spaces for residents and visitors, demonstrating clear belief in the importance of culture, heritage, and creativity, and fostering a diverse and dynamic art scene that enriches the lives of both residents and visitors. Utilizing public spaces invites and encourages everyone to explore the world of public art, where each work is an opportunity to pause, reflect, and connect.
Anyone else? Councillor Frizzle.
I agreed with the legacy part, the lasting legacy. That sounds good too, but I was just thinking very simply that just taking on lasting and having a legacy to future generations.
What does that mean?
You're leaving an impression of what you wanted to leave, and that could mean anything. It depends on who does the artwork. That's what I was thinking.
Councillor Herring.
Yeah, I like your amendment, Councillor Sim. Just specifically the lasting legacy piece, I actually agree, because sometimes art is transitory. It's referencing one particular moment in time, talking about one specific issue, and it might come to a point where a piece of art is decommissioned, right? Where we allow someone else to take up a space that's been used before. So I think removing the legacy piece might be worthwhile, and I do think that fostering conversations and promoting the local art scenes are really good additions to this policy. I like the idea that part of this policy is about cultivating local talent and culture, not just about, outside forces.
Yes.
I like that.
Councillor Sim.
Thank you very much, Councillor Herring. Councillor Frizzle, why I felt it was in a bit of conflict is because there's quite an extensive inclusion here on the de-action, and I can't even say the word de-actioning procedure. So it seemed that we were going to hold on, and then we didn't have that gateway. So by removing it, it becomes a clearer policy.
And I agree with that. I was just thinking of something a little simpler. I mean, I'm not married to this at all.
Wait, if I can say it in 400 words and other people can say it in 100, I'd like to go with 400, so.
I think you said 400 and I said 1, so. I'm good with removing it altogether. Just, I just like the idea that we used to have the artwork come out, and it is leaving a legacy without saying the word.
All right, so I'm going to still stand with my suggestion for revision that I read, if there was a seconder for it or not.
A seconder for that one?
I'll second Councillor Sim's revision.
Councillor Herring, thank you. All those in favor?
And I will provide that to you. Okay. The second comment that I had in this was the definition of an artist. When I thought about it, and it gave lots of opportunity. But what I felt maybe could be included is when I think about our community and I think about the fish along the fence line of the bridge, the rocks along the road, and other impromptu forms of visual expression, they are really, really interesting. But they weren't done by artists as defined in this policy. And so I would see this definition being modified to encourage budding artists, unexpected versions of art and more. If, in fact, I would even take it out to allow us just to discover art on its own in an organic way.
Any other questions or comments?
Oh, I see. Yeah. No, I agree.
Oh, Councillor Matheson.
Yes, I tend to agree. This when I first read this, it comes across as somebody has to have professional training and all that kind of stuff. And I think encouraging our people in our community, whether it be in schools or anywhere else, to contribute to this artwork, I think is pretty key, and keeping that support going with the talent, and somehow worded into that.
Councillor Sim.
So my question for council would be to either redefine or to remove.
Councillor Broughton.
I think a redefinition would be beneficial because it needs to be stated what the requirements are, I do believe.
Councillor Sim, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead, Councillor Herring, I see your hand.
Councillor Herring.
Yeah, I like the idea of a redefinition as well. I think maybe if we could send, like sort of in principle, I think this looks great. I think a quick revision of artist to include a broader definition somehow. I don't have a specific rewording, but something to the effect of any person who creates art is the definition of an artist, right?
John.
Whether or not it's recognized, whether or not it's skilled, it's just about whoever created that art. Because for the purpose of the policy, either way, we're not evaluating their formal recognition. We're evaluating the artwork as it applies to the policy. So that's my take.
Councillor
So
Sim.
as we read further on into the report, item 3F, Public Art Advisory Committee, so a PAC, where that definition of an artist could actually come through that advisory committee, which means that we could take it out now to then get this policy passed, recognizing that those who come together and define how we see art in our community could come through this committee. So I move to remove the artist definition.
Seconder on that?
I just have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
If it's removed and a committee is then figuring it out, is that okay?
That's what committees do.
Yeah, Acting Mayor
Prime.
McKenzie through to Council Breton. That would be in the purview of the committee to make a recommendation to council to have that redefined.
Oh, I see.
It would still be up to council after they make a recommendation.
Councillor Sim, would you like to make a motion for that?
Still moving to remove it from this particular policy at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, seconded.
Yeah. Second by Councillor Frizzle.
And third and final is in regards to the partnerships. Oh, we need,
It first.
Can we vote?
yeah.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion?
Yeah, all those in favor of the motion, sorry. Thank you.
The third item to address in this is the partnership. I just want to comment that Clearwater has always been a town that's been strong in tourism, and it needs to bolster tourism for its future, especially its culture. So in that definition, it would be good to see how tourism partnerships be added to this policy, that tourism is an economic driver. It's just not clearly cited, but we're in partnerships, goals and objectives. Maybe Ms. Culp can help me find it.
Councillor Sim through Acting Mayor McKenzie. That would be 2.3D, I believe.
You are fabulous, thank you. That's exactly where it is. So it says partnering with municipal departments and other committees, and it's suggesting that there are synergies. It does talk about public works, economic development, council appointed, public art advisory. This is on page 49 of the agenda. And the public art program will take advantage of opportunities for collaboration wherever possible. Again, it's just simply inserting and tourism. But I think that that's important for our community just to recognize that we want to work that way. So my motion would be that we include and tourism.
And I
Partners.
second it.
And second by Councillor Frizzle, okay.
All those in favor?
All those in favor? Mr. Prime?
Sorry, Acting Mayor McKenzie, who seconded?
Councillor Frizzle.
Thank you.
Yes. Oh, Councillor Sim, sorry.
So the final comment about this particular policy, which does allow us to move forward on a number of things, is what comes now? Like, is it staff's suggestion that we move towards an art committee? Do we just let this sit? And the purpose of asking is because at one of our earlier meetings, we did have a delegation that had come forward. They had some ideas about different sort of art within the community, but it doesn't have anywhere to land. So now it can land. So what's next? What's now?
Those are Councillor Sim through Acting Mayor Mackenzie. Thank you for all your feedback, and that's a really good question. We're definitely going to have to meet, and we'll get back to you on that. We'll bring that up at our next meeting.
Councillor Sim.
So supplemental to that, is it for council to then ask for that direction, or is it to ask for a staff report to come back on developing it? And again, I'm just conscious that we had a delegation that had something, we've had a number of things, and I need it to land because we've been waiting for this.
I think it would be appropriate for council to put a motion directing staff to bring forward what the implementation plan looks like so that you can see it along with the timelines. And then what we would do is include it in the operational plan moving forward.
Councillor Herring.
So do we need then to move option 2 from the original recommendation, that council adopts the public art policy with the attached amendments, the previously mentioned amendments? Yeah. If so, then I'll make motion for option 2.
Okay. I have a seconder on that. Councillor Sim. All those in favor? Thank you.
So just to close out that then, I will make the motion to direct staff to come back. And how did you describe that?
Direct staff to bring forward an implementation plan for the arts policy and what that looks like with committee, how things get referred to it, and the timeline.
So moved.
And I'll second.
Yep. Second by Councillor Frizzle. And all in favor for that? Perfect, thank you.
And again, many, many thanks for like really great work.
Really good.
Yes, thank you, staff. Okay, moving on. We have no public or statutory hearings. It's a brief acting mayor's report. Anyway, welcome back, everyone. Hope everyone's enjoyed their summer so far. I've been relatively quiet since the last meeting for me, myself, in regards to council business. The acting mayor for today's meeting, I was able to attend the August 14th agenda setting, and that pretty much was it for the last month for me out there. Since our July meeting, we've had quite a few wildfires in the North Thompson Valley, and I just wanted to thank everyone involved in the suppression efforts to help keep our residents safe, from ministry and contact crews, neighboring fire departments, our neighbors SIMP with their Indigenous initial attack crews, and also our own local fire department being able to utilize some of their wildland training in a couple of unique scenarios. I just want to thank everyone for hard work and dedication to keep this valley we call home safe. And I want to just put out a reminder too, this Sunday, 5th annual Cruising Clearwater Show and Shine will be setting up shop at the CSS parking lot. This event will be open to the public beginning at 11 a.m. Sunday. Local band Stolen Awesome will be there to provide entertainment beginning at 1 p.m. There'll be vendors on site, and Clearwater District Food Bank will be running the grill by donation. Thanks to Fresh Street Market for everything they donated for the grill that afternoon. And don't forget, our local TNRD director will be eagerly perched upon the dunk tank with all proceeds from that are going to the food bank as well. So make sure you swing out there, take a look. There'll be some nice cars, good food, good vendors. Just make sure to pop in. That is it for me. Moving over to council reports. Councillor Bratton.
I can activate it. Good afternoon. I don't have a lot to report today. It's been a great summer so far. I would like to comment just because Mayor Mackenzie, Acting Mayor Mackenzie brought it up. I have to thank SIMP's communication achievements for getting out the information during their fire efforts. It was greatly appreciated, kept everybody on their toes and up to snuff on what's going on. And I, for one, appreciated all the information. On that note, I would really like the District of Clearwater. We do get information out and we try our hardest to do that. I would like us to come up with a maybe new improved plan that would activate information before happenings, and it would engage the public to a point of them actually knowing what's happening before the event happens. Maybe in case in point is the revitalization of Dutch Lake and the paving and all of that to 37 East. And if we could, I don't know if I make a motion or whatever, but to come up with a plan, action plan, so that we have communication and then action.
Mr. Johnson?
And this is precisely the reason that we have the operational plan on the agenda. So you can dig
Okay.
into those details and provide us that direction.
Right.
I know I've spoken to a number of council members that had that same concern. What's the plan? How do we present that? How do we get that out to the public? I'm a big believer in better is possible in everything that we do.
Yeah.
And certainly on the communication side, we need to step ourselves moving forward rather than where we've been in the past. And we do need to step up. And that's one of the areas that we need to focus on. And when we get to the operational plan, I fully expect that you'll give us direction to have that communication plan forthwith.
Perfect. Thank you. And other than that, I do have to say the music nights have been going fantastic. They've been attended very well, and there's been a lot of activity in town. With the devastation out in Jasper, things could have got really super quiet around here, and the vendors around town may have seen a decline a bit, but I don't think it was as bad as we all thought it was going to be. So, you couldn't tell that by the traffic through town. So, I thought it's been a great summer so far. Anyways, that's it.
Thank you. Councillor Frizzle?
Thank you. I'd like to reiterate my gratefulness to the first responders on the fires. That was amazing. We were very lucky that they were out there. I also want to thank the businesses that stayed open late and opened early for the Jasper evacuees. They were able to come through and get gas, get food, or whatever. The Visitor Information Center as well stayed open, and we're helping lots of displaced persons and helping them get to their next location. And also, I'd like to thank Tourism World's Great for constantly promoting that the park was open in the hours and all the things that were necessary so that people were still coming through. Through this summer, it was a good summer, and I've had a lot of, I've looked around Clearwater with a lot of gratitude because I watched a lot of people helping each other. There's neighbors helping neighbors is what's been really noticeable, and it's brought the community paramedics, the hospice society, the victim services. We're all working together to helping neighbors. That's all I'll say, but they're together making something happen in a positive way in the community, and it just made me realize how lucky we are to be in a community that wants to help each other. So I just wanted to focus on that because I thought it just made my heart grow a little bit. Thursday night music nights, I did that. It's been great. Swimming lessons. Yoga has been going on for the seniors. Farmers market, pancake breakfast. And then this afternoon, I was invited to the barbecue at the Man Sheds. The Man Sheds was just a spark of an idea in 2019. And 2020, we were going to get it going. And then the world shut down. And they didn't let it go, and now they're this very dynamic group that are helping the community. They're building things, they're donating things. They're an amazing group, and I am so excited and proud of them, and I just wanted everybody to know that they're there, and you should go out and just take something down for them to fix. That's my report.
Thank you, Councillor Frizzle. Councillor Herring?
Yeah, so not much to report. I do want to extend, what you were saying earlier, Councillor or Acting Mayor Mackenzie, that really appreciated seeing all our regional partners and their activity on the emergency management situation in both Jasper and also the fires near Dunn Lake. I think what really stuck out for me is I think there's an opportunity for us to use the new provincial emergency management framework so that we can create a regional emergency management organization, and maybe we can find those partners. CIMP do amazing work. It would be great to work with them as do Barrier, as do Valemont, all of our region. We could find partners, I think, who could bring something to the table. We've previously worked with the TNRD with our sort of $10,000 commitment, but the TNRD's area is just so big, so it's too much to expect the TNRD to be able to manage Ashcroft and Clearwater in the same moment with something. So a regional organization, I really think, is something we should pursue. Aside from that, I've received sort of lots of negative feedback about the size of the lanes near Dutch Lake and the bike lane, some challenges around basically just the transition and what it looks like, but also a reminder, we went out, we did a lot of public consultation. We brought those photos. All of us looked at those photos and saw something that we thought was going to work. And then sometimes when the rubber hits the road and things go up, it looks different than what it did on paper. And I think that happened to some of us as well as the community. So I do think that we need to find some room to maybe accept some of that feedback and find out how we can move forward with that area. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Councillor Herring. Councillor Matheson.
Not a lot to report. I've been off the grid for probably better part of 2 months. But in those travels, I did see a lot of effect of climate change. We tend to think it's only happening in Clearwater, but traveling up through the Yukon, paddling through forest fires, it was like threading the needle up there. We had landslides, floods, fires, you name it, it was there. People stranded behind landslides. It was continuous, roads collapsing because of collapsing permafrost. So we're not alone in these situations, and everybody is struggling with the same anxiety, the same, how are we going to pay to repair all this stuff? How are we going to work together to try and combat this stuff? So it's a big problem, and it was in our face up there through the whole trip, and talking with a lot of the local leaders up there, and they're doing very similar things, collaborating with local First Nations, working with gold mines, to get a more immediate response to fire action. So I think that's the way to go, is getting the regionalization going, like Councillor Herring says. But yeah, other than that, I'm kind of glad to be back in the world. That's it, thanks.
Perfect, thank you for that. Councillor Sim.
Thanks very much. Echoing all of the gratitude there. Also, just want to mention that the Hospital Auxiliary, they're now selling their tickets for their raffle, and it's been wonderful to see that typically a local person has had a great $10,000 infusion in December. We've also just had word that the X-ray machine work will be starting in November. So that's going to be a really important development for the community. We also have Dr. Ben Suleiman, who is going to be starting in Clearwater officially as of September the 18th. So look for a new physician around town, which is wonderful. Lively Arts, I think that to see the attendance growing each year has been really, really important. It does bring about maybe we could meet with them or just make some suggestions on better use of facilities. Just to have those one set of porta potties, it's difficult. So I would be interested in just doing a loop around with Lively Arts and just seeing what some of the options might be, recognizing there is a slope there and some mobility challenges. In terms of a community inquiry, and I think also to echo what Councillor Herring was saying, is having that table, is that in July when the Voyant alert went out, and I will be asking about this also in the operational plan, there was a lot of citizens who were asking, what's the plan? So if there is a fire, do people put their rooftop sprinklers on? But if we don't have enough water, is that the way that we should go? How do we protect our infrastructure? What infrastructure is being protected first? But we don't have a clear rollout. And when we saw the devastation in Jasper, it does provoke the questions about how do we move forward and how do we ask those questions and how do we address them and how do we prepare our community? We've got the fire smarting, but what about the water? What's the priority? What's the evacuation? So I do note in the operation plan, which again we can address, that we have this fire smart coordinator. Is this where this lands? But how do we articulate it out? When's that going to happen? And let's do it in advance of next year. I do note that one of the UBCM grants is the public notification and evacuation route planning. They are accepting applications, and the next intake deadline is April 25th, 2025. Of course, that is funding dependent, which is code for which government is in. But is that something that we can talk about a bit further as we get into the operational plan? And I also note that that was also echoed in a letter that we all received from a citizen that's on our tabletop as well. So it's an important conversation. It was good to see the Voyant Alert working and affecting so many people, but it does ask what's next. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Hey, moving along, we have no CIO report this month. New business staff reports, item 16.1. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Acting Mayor, through to Council. Attached is the operational and the strategic plan for Council for 2024. The intention behind the strategic plan is so that Council can look at that quarterly and is there any revisions that we need with that plan? But more importantly, the operational plan gives you the details. What are we working on? When can you expect these things to come forward? And it's essentially the report card for the organization. If you see everything in green, well, that's good. But did we have too much flex in the plan that allowed everything to be green, or were we trying to be too aspirational and you see things that are red? Councillor Sim brought forward a question of what does the symbols mean? That should have been included with the report. Red means there's trouble in the project. Council should be aware of that. Yellow is we're anticipating some concerns. Here's what the concerns are. And green, we're on track. So it becomes very easy to see the report card of the organization and how well we said we can do versus how well we actually did. So when council members are bringing up things like the Dutch Lake improvements, this is your opportunity to dig deeper into that with the operational plan and give some direction to staff. I know one of the items that I've heard from a number of members of council is we'd like to be more proactive in our communications, particularly with that road improvements and what that looks like. We've been struggling as an organization with media and getting the message out there to have that proactive response instead of reactive, but it's taking us a bit of time to get out of that reactionary mode into proactive. We had a recruitment that we went through for admin services where we included, as part of the role, communications, and we found that that's been a tough position to fill. More information will be coming up with that at future meetings. But it is one of the areas that I think better is possible in what we do, and that is certainly on the communication side. I hear at almost every council meeting where you want to see us be more proactive. We need to get our resources in place to get there, but it's a mind shift. We're going away from being this reactionary organization to try and be proactive. There's going to be some bumps in the road. That's why we need council's help. Give us an idea of those things that you want us to be proactive of. For instance, those road improvements along Dutch Lake, how all that fits together. If council is a bit confused about that, can you imagine the public who hasn't sat through the meetings? So we need to do our job to make sure that we're articulating what those are. So when you go through the operational plan, the intention is, rather than having to go through your council reports and ask those questions, it's when this plan comes forward. And it's going to come forward every quarter. So every 3 months, you're going to see this plan. So you can defer those discussions to the strategic plan. If something comes up during that period that you want it to take a priority, well, what moves down the priority list for us to be able to look at that as a new priority? So this is really about good governance. Council's talked about your strategic priorities. Those are the global things that you want to achieve within your time frame here in Clearwater, and the operational plans is the details to get there. We've got most of our staff here today to answer your questions, and I hope you have quite a few, because this is your opportunity to dig in, see where we're at in these projects, and make sure that they're meeting your expectations. The difficulty becomes, if council wants us to start switching priorities, let's not do that on the fly. What I recommend is, if you want something to increase in priority, say, yes, we'd like this to increase, but staff, we want you to come back with a report saying, here, in order for us to increase this is where we have to decrease that priority. So council understands the capacity of the organization. So right now, this is the litmus test. How well did we do from what we said we could do? Because these are staff's timelines right now. And this is how we're going to hold our staff accountable for the things that they said that they would do. Because this becomes part of the performance plan of the organization. And that's one of the things that I'm looking to adopt here very quickly, is a performance process for our staff so that they understand where we're meeting expectations and where we need to add value in some of these positions moving forward. So I'm not going to go into a long PowerPoint with each of these sections. This is for council, your questions, and we're here to answer them. Thank you, Acting Mayor.
Thank you for that, Mr. Johnson. Any questions, council? Councilor Matheson?
Yeah, I'm just, I've been concerned about the backup power and generator and what that status is with that, and why the delays.
Hello, can you hear me? A little closer. There we go. Currently, the generators are not on site. They're in customs, is what I've been told. So they should be here soon. We didn't carry a contingency on this project, and some things came up about BC Hydro needed a design that was not included in the scope of work. So just the connection cost from BC Hydro is I should have the cost today, was what I was told, but so I'll be bringing those to the next council meeting just to share those.
I hate to say it, but this is the gift that keeps on giving for us. There's been a number of budget amendments that have come forward with this. We're expecting another one. What I'd asked was, I asked some previous staff reports that have been done, what class of estimates is what council's expecting? I found that report and that class of estimates was never actually adopted by council. We need to have that from a good governance perspective. What class estimate should we be going out to tender with to make sure that we're on point and on budget? The lower the class of estimate, the higher the risk is, right? If you go to tender on a project that's only 33% designed, you got a 66% risk. This project, we're expecting another budget amendment and a report to come forward. I apologize, we thought we might have that available today, but as Mr. Carmichael said, that information is forthcoming today. You can expect another report at our next council meeting outlining what those potential changes in scope would be and what those costs are. Like you, we're concerned with the amount of time that this has taken. There are some lessons learned that we've got in this project for sure.
Councilor Frizzle?
So just to clarify, the generator is stuck at customs. We don't know how long. But when it does get here, we don't have the connections to hook it up. Is that what I'm hearing?
The cost for BC Hydro to do their work was not included in the tender.
Oh, okay.
So we'll be able to get the work done. I just don't know how much it's going to cost.
Okay, I understand. I misunderstood that.
Okay.
Councilor Sim?
And just for clarity on that particular project, if that generator, or when it does get connected, what will its purpose be for the community?
So there's two generators. One is for the DLCC, and it'll be, so for this building, for in emergencies, when there's power outages, this will be used as a cooling center in the summer for the community, and kind of a warming center in the winter. Those were and this would be the emergency command center as well.
Right, but do we have a generator that's attached to our water supply?
And that is the second generator that's going in. That's strictly for
Okay,
the water
and so
supply.
with that water, and just again, we've got a nice audience here, so it would be nice for them to hear that this is part of our planning for any outages or emergencies. So what could be expected in the event of a power outage and this generator is working?
Then the water should run as normal.
Okay, for everybody in the community. Okay, great, thank you.
Councilor Bratton?
Where exactly are the generators coming from? Which customs? American customs?
I I did not get them to clarify. I think they were coming from China, but
Okay, so, and this is, are we on a 2-year project here so far? This has taken 2 years? No? Am I wrong?
we tendered it last fall.
Last fall.
Yeah. So it will be complete this year.
Okay, so, and hydro connection fees can be quite significant for a project that size. So we're probably looking at a good chunk of change coming in for a question.
I'm expecting it to be in the, I'm scared to say, but
Yeah.
in the $30,000 range is what I'm
Okay.
expecting, but
Yeah. And have they haven't given you any prognosis when it's gonna leave customs or, No.
they don't have that information yet.
When something like this lands in customs, there's a custom broker that will go through and make sure that it clears customs and it has all the information needed. Sometimes customs will pull a package aside to make sure that what's in it is actually what's stated what's in it.
Right.
Particularly if it's coming from China, some of the things that have been packaged in some of those things in the past, it's not surprising that they've pulled it aside for a site inspection.
Yeah, okay, just checking.
Councillor Herring.
So, kind of on a related but separate note, I'm curious about how emergency management is going to fit into this plan, because we have several small pieces like the fire projects, the generators, some of the climate action stuff is probably directly related. But do we have the possibility of an overall framework for emergency management, such as that regional organization I was talking about earlier, as part of the work plan? Am I missing it here?
Yes, Councillor Herring through Acting Mayor McKenzie. I would say the struggle with emergency management in the district right now is it doesn't have a home. We don't have an emergency program coordinator. I do a bit of it off the side of my desk because I have a background in it. Mike does a bit of it off the side of his desk. There's no one sort of position that manages it. Previously it may have been with the CAO primarily. Moving forward, I think that sort of needs to be given a home, even if it's an existing staff position, just somebody that manages it, right?
I think it'd be worthwhile for council to pass a motion directing staff to bring forward a report on emergency management, timelines, implications, and where we're at.
Councillor Sim.
I'm happy to make that motion, but my first question would be, in order for it to find a home, does it need an emergency management table to build on Councillor Herring's idea, or is that too premature? But with an emergency management table, does that spark and allow the different pieces to come together? Like, I'm looking for the best form.
I think at this point about a table or a committee is premature.
Okay.
I think what we need to do is bring forward the bones. Here's what the policy is. Here's what the legislative expectation is. Here's where we're at as an organization, and then provide all of what those options are moving forward with timelines, with existing resources and with other resources. That's what my intention would be, to bring this back forward to council so you can see the whole suite, particularly with what's happened with our community neighbors in Alberta and some of the other emergency management items that have happened over this last summer. Council and the community wants to be assured that we're ready. What I can tell you is we've done a lot of staff training in terms of being ready, but that doesn't help the public understand what does an evacuation look like, who's responsible for that, how will that be described to the community, how are we going to communicate with the community. We need to bring that comprehensive timeline to council so that you know that we're meeting the expectations under the Emergency Management Act. That's something that we should be doing as a core part of business. It would be important for council to put that in a motion, and we'll make sure that that report comes forward with the existing staffing that we've got, what the concerns are, and what it could look like moving forward.
Councillor Sim.
So that's a significant amount of work, which I appreciate. But I feel strongly, like Councillor Herring, this is our number one responsibility for emergency management, given the fact that we are at the end of August. We have this opportunity to plan forward, but I want to know then what gets taken off this list.
And that would be the part where you defer to staff to bring forward how the other priorities fall off the list. And that's what we'll do. We'll bring this forward, say for us to address this right now, this is how it moves up, here's how the priorities move down, so that council's not struggling for what that looks like from a capacity perspective.
Thank you. And because Councillor Herring's been quite passionate about this, I look to you to make the motion.
Sure, happy to make that motion. I think that's a great idea. If you could bring a report back and let us know what the plan is for emergency management moving forward, that would be great.
By what date would you like this?
I'd rather not put a date on that, just because I really want to make sure that we get a fulsome report. So my main thing is with the intention to be ready for the next emergency management season, which would be Freshet in 2025.
Councillor Sim.
Which I think is fine. I personally like this new plan where there's some accountability with different quarters to it. So for me, it would be no later than December that we get the bare bones, so we know what we need to act on. And that comes into a budget session if there's anything that's needed. To me, we need to hear and get some results.
Sorry.
Oh, Councillor Herring, go.
Yeah, and my response to that would be, without knowing what needs to go into the plan, it's difficult to put it on a timeline, right? Like I just don't know how much work is going to be needed in order to even suss this out. So I'm really hesitant to put a specific timeline until we have an addition to the operational plan. Essentially, the timeline would come just like here, once it's in the operational plan and we decide what bumps, what doesn't bump.
Councillor Sim.
Yes, I'd like to see a bare bones so that council can have some input to do it. And that's not saying it's the final one, but at least to have a review. I just recognize that with all of these pages of different work things, that this is council's opportunity to say what's important on behalf of the community and to at least get the bare bones of what the next steps could be without details. I'm with you on that one. But to where are we and to get it into this plan at least. Oh, Mr. Johnson, I see.
I'd recommend before the next quarterly update of this plan so that it can be interwoven with the amendments. And that way we're not waiting, 6 months and whatnot. Given where we're at with the emergencies, the other part of this too is to remember that our fire chief no longer has bylaw enforcement as part of his responsibility. So this is one of the areas that I would expect that he can turn his attention to much quicker than what he would have in the past. So I think it's appropriate to say before the next quarterly update. So if there are any changes, we can make sure that gets included within that.
Councillor Matheson.
Just some information, how does this all kind of bind together with the download that we're getting from the province on emergency management? Is there funding for it, or is there?
Yes, Councillor Matheson through Acting Mayor McKenzie. We don't even know the full extent to which this is going to impact us. The regulations haven't quite come out in full effect yet, so we don't quite know how bad it is. What was the first part of your question?
How it all interrelates between what we're trying to do here and the requirement of downloading from.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we were already behind before this new legislation came into effect, so I think we still have a lot to make up with the addition of the downloading.
So I don't know if you want to make that amendment or if you want me to do a friendly amendment, even though we don't have a seconder, but to take up Mr. Johnston's suggestion.
Just make it easy. I'll make the amendment that it be provided by the next quarterly update. Sorry.
I'll second that.
Second by Councillor Sim. All those in favor? Thank you for that. There's a recommendation on that.
Whoa,
Oh,
we're
sorry,
not done.
Sorry. No.
Councillor Frizzle, did you have some questions?
I have a real basic question on the status. We have a very many inactives there, but I suspect that they're not all inactive, but more like pending, maybe?
That's a very good point. We'll refine that for the next update, inactive versus pending. That's another category that we'll put in there.
Okay, thank you. I think it would look better.
For clarity, absolutely.
Councillor Sim.
And I think that segues into the TMX grants projects, which are considered to be inactive, but maybe pending or even some sort of an update. So maybe I'll leave that question for there. It just seems that the TMX projects are kind of woven into some of the other corridor projects between 37 East as well as Dutch Lake.
Yeah, the TMX project is actually quite active. We've completed the paving, we've completed the fencing at Kapuscinski Ballpark. We've contracted with a local contractor to clean up the banks on the property, and we've contracted with a timber frame company to build the Loggers Memorial Gazebo.
Okay, great. And then on the question of 37 East development, it's also cited as inactive, although the comments are is that the gazebo has been started, signage, curbs, shape the side hills, planting, and benches. So what are we doing now so that we are ready for 37 East to be completed by next year?
We are clearing some land. When you go by, if you'll see where the two crosswalks leading into that property, one of them leads into the bush. So we are clearing that property. We're going to be grading, contouring the banks, filling in some of the holes, creating 2 parking spots on the top bench for boat trailer parking, and cleaning up the banks. The bank material is very loose. and we've had a lot of runoff from water coming off Lakeview Drive. So we're going to putting some material on there to hold the banks in place.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think that that's also because 37 East, the vision of council has been that it serves as sort of a center point for a trail access for the new river trail, parking for the boat launch, as well as overflow parking for the beach, because it's part of an entire sort of corridor vision. And to Councillor Herring's point, as well as to Councillor Bratton's points, well, we still haven't gotten the Dutch Lake Road right yet. And so where do we have space in this operations plan to hear from the community? I mean, goodness knows there's more than one opinion out there on it, and it's fairly strong. And how are we going to address it? I cannot bear a third season. I cannot bear it. It's not intuitive. We've got this wonderful section where it's 2 lanes, and I think that that's important. But after you come off the highway, it's this gravel, and it's kind of like a mystery tour. Where do I go? So is that the opportunity to apply for an active transportation grant? Like, we somehow have to tie this whole corridor together with a vision. And how can we make that happen?
Mr. Johnson.
Well, these last 2 projects that you spoke about, whether it's the TMX grant, we're not being proactive about that, right? We're doing the work, but who knows that we're doing the work, right? It's just kind of, we're doing this, but not knowing here. So we need to really look at the way that we do business and incorporate that with the public's face in mind, right? So they're not just doing this and we're not just checking it off. Yes, we've got this done, because we're not celebrating the successes of our wins. And when it comes to TMX, we're moving forward with it, but people aren't aware of what we're doing. So what we're hoping through this operational plan is to get some more meat on the bones, right? So that staff are aware of, let's not just be reactionary, let's be proactive and make sure the public's aware. So when we get back to, the Dutch Lake Road Plan upgrade, well, we need to go back and have another consultation with the community. Hey, here's what we've done. Here's where we're at. Looking forward to the future, what does that look like? And as a staff, we can host those sorts of meetings to have those questions and bring the public in. So what I would recommend is that council request staff to bring that plan forward and what that looks like as part of an operational plan update as that next step.
Councillor Herring.
And kind of along that line, I guess for me, like that project, it's listed in here as complete, I believe. When I see that kind of thing, that's great, because that project hit its completion. But what point in the cycle is feedback incorporated when a project is complete? And now, sort of like if you got a grant, you usually have to report back, right? And there's that, so the work is done, but you still have work to do to kind of go back and close the project off. So is there generally a policy about that from the district at this point?
Short answer, no. What we should be doing is at the end of a major project doing what's called the lessons learned, right? And that lessons learned is so they're not making the same mistake over and over again. Whether it's the generator, and we've had a number of cost increases that have gone with it. We've come back to council a number of times for budget amendments. What's going to stop us from doing that in the future? And that's what I asked our corporate service officer, do we have like a policy on what we do with estimates? He says, yes, we do. And so he went back and he found the policy, but it was never actually adopted by council. Right? It was presented, but we didn't actually take that next step of actually making it a policy of council. So we need to really start referring that back and having that good governance bones. And that's what this operational plan is all about. What are we missing? And we're missing that public feedback with what we've done there. And then what's the next step? How does that all tie together? And that goes to Councillor Sim's question about, should we be making application for active transportation throughout the community? Without question. How are we going to link those links that don't go anywhere? We've got sidewalks in part of this community that we're never going to see another sidewalk connected. I hate seeing that as a taxpayer. I hate it even more that we're creating sidewalks with nowhere to go. So that's what we need to do, is have that more comprehensive plan. And when it comes to active transportation, we have work that needs to be done. We need to get the feedback from the community so that we're reflecting not only the goals of what happens, from a good engineering design, but what does the public expect as well? And did we achieve what we said we were going to expect? There's probably some more work that needs to be done. So once again, when it comes to, the Dutch Lake Road Plan upgrade, well, it might be done for the upgrades for this year, but not the public consultation piece, which council is expecting that we do. And once again, that should be an amendment that comes to council with the consideration before the next update of the quarterly plan, so you can see how it all fits together. We can engage in January, February, March, and hopefully we get that information before the budget, which is important. So if you want to make changes, then you got the funds to do it. Feels like we're cobbling it together. We are right now. It will get much better as we get this as part of the good governance process moving forward. It's going to feel a bit bumpy as we get there, but this is all good feedback to get a plan that makes sense for council and that the public knows what it is that we're doing.
Councillor Sim.
So to that, one of the things that I would ask in preparation of that Dutch Lake corridor update and review to have highlighted in the operational plan is if staff could do some videotaping, because I think there was tremendous work that went into this, and it was better, like it was wider. But there's that really special point where you come around the curve and everybody moves into the other lane. So yes, we made it safer for cyclists and for scooters and for that increased demographic, but we forgot about the traffic, and it just didn't end it. Do you know what I'm talking about? When you come around that, it's this slight bend in it, and everybody has to move into the oncoming lane. Take some video, and I think it'll be good so that we can reflect to see how the area is being used in order to do lessons learned, because it's still not intuitive and it is pieced, and I think it does need that vision. And there are active transportation grants out there. So, Mr. Johnson, how would you see this conversation fitting into the operational plan? Do we call it the Dutch Lake Road?
Yep, well, we can pick any name, but yeah, I think we need to look at the traffic portion as far as the intersection right here at Dutch Lake Road and the Old North Thompson Highway as well. It needs a treatment of some kind.
Yeah.
Whether it's a roundabout or moving Lakeview Drive.
And we might have to just hold a bigger, bolder vision for the whole thing. But I think that seeing the number of scooters, e-bikes, all of that, like I hear a number of people, why can't we just have it the way it was? Sure, it worked the way it was. The difference is we have more users in different capacities that I think we also need to be aware of. And how do we create a user plan that is effective for everybody?
Councillor Herring.
So to move this along, then, is this similar to the emergency management conversation in that we would request that staff bring back a report kind of indicating how we can incorporate this into the operational plan moving forward, a feedback mechanism on the, what do we call this, the 37 East Pathway Project, or?
And lessons learned. We should have this in every project that we do so that we learn the lessons. And, you know, staff come and go, councils come and go, but that project's always going to be there. And, you know, years from now, people are going to forget why you've made that change. And to go back and find that information is really hard to do. And from a lessons learned perspective, we needed to have that consultation piece at the end of it. Hey, how did we do, public? Right? Did we hit the mark, or are there other changes that we have to make? So I'm going to write down the lessons learned. We did this when I was at the City of Victoria. We had a budget overrun of $68 million for a project. There's no way that should be a moniker of the good way to do business. We have to learn the lessons, otherwise we're going to repeat the same mistake over and over again.
Great, so do you need a motion to that effect, or?
Yes.
Okay, then I'd like to make that motion.
I will second that motion. And are we calling it the 37 East Corridor, Dutch Lake Road Corridor?
Let's call it the Dutch Lake Road
I like
Corridor.
Dutch Lake Road Corridor.
Like that.
All those in favor? Okay, thank you for that.
I have a question.
No, Councillor Brown.
If we're moving on from that, the cemetery bylaw, I know this is a thorn in everyone's side just because it's still sitting around. And I was part of a committee that was trying to generate the bylaw for that, or the information to create the bylaw for that. And it's still in the red. So if we have some sort of, if it can be finished within, you know, the next.
You want to move it up the priority?
I'd like to move it up the priority list if we could. Because I think we're going on 3 or 4 years of working on the bylaw for it. And don't know how much work is involved, but I know when we left it, the previous CAO was going to create the actual we'd gotten to the point where the bylaw just needed to be written up. And, but I'm not sure where all that is at this point.
Yes, Councillor Bratton through Acting Mayor McKenzie. This was a project that, yeah, as you mentioned, was with the committee at first. The drafting of the bylaw was with the CAO at the time. Then it went to the interim CAO, then the previous CAO. Now it was wound up on my desk. I've been waiting for sort of an opportunities for some of the finance department, after their budget, finance audit,
Right.
Trying to get some of their time as well. Are you asking for it to be sooner than October of this year?
Oh, that's what that means?
Yes.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Okay.
I didn't know that's what it meant. That actually would be fantastic.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Herring.
And just had a point of clarification. What is the Highway 5 designation OIC project?
It was an order in council. When the district was created, the designated highways no longer existed. So those aren't actually designated highways right now, although they're being operated as such. So an order in council had to happen, and it took that long for an order in council to come forward. And we understand that that's now been completed. There will be a report coming to council saying those are redesignated. It's a bit unfortunate in a way, because I was of the opinion that we didn't have to refer anything to highways because it wasn't a provincially designated highway. Now it is again, so we will be referring those matters back up.
There
And I
goes
say
my
that
toll booth plan.
Councillor Sim.
Yeah, so just a couple of things is one, I do want to just go back to what you said, Mr. Johnson, about noting that that bylaw had not, or that policy had not been brought forward to council, as if we could make sure that that's brought forward. It seems to me that that's an imperative.
on my list as one that needs to happen, because if you don't have the right class of estimate, you're going to get constant changes, and that's the unfortunate part. You know, I learned that lesson when we had a bridge that was designed at 30%. We went to tender, and it increased 110% because there's so much uncertainty. We need to reduce that amount of certainty, which means you have shelf-ready plans. So when you apply for a grant, you're actually knowing exactly what you're going to get, and you update that shelf-ready plan every year. Otherwise, it becomes stale. We've had a lot of changes in terms of how much oil costs over the last 2 years, which has a huge change from what we see in contract prices. And we see that when we're talking about roads contracts later on in this agenda.
Thank you. So the other one that I just want to highlight is that the Accessibility Committee, it wasn't successful garnering input from the community. So thank you for the effort. I know that that was hard. It is a legislated responsibility. So I'm wondering how to revive that. And my concern is that if we do not have an Accessibility Committee or plan in place, is that we are at risk of maybe not being eligible for some grants.
Yes, Councillor Sim through Acting Mayor McKenzie. That is correct. It is a legislated responsibility. There were minimum requirements for the composition of the Accessibility Committee. The very minimal input that we had from the public didn't come close to even meeting a minimum amount for the committee, let alone sort of their required individuals that needed to be on there. Our plan currently was just to repost it, try and garner more interest and see what we can do from there. Staff could present an accessibility plan. You know, there are quite a few to sort of draw from, and sort of present that to council without the input from an accessibility committee, if that council's desire is that. Whether that would sort of get around for those grants, that would be sort of my question.
So what I'm wondering also is with that information is that there was a UNBC study called From Front Door to Grocery Store that had a lot of really good feedback from the community. It was extensive, and I think if we go through it, a lot of it is still relevant. I don't think we have to rewrite the playbook on it. I think that there is room for it if that would be of help to the committee. And my last one for the operational plan is just, I would really like to revisit the council procedure bylaw. It does not work for me. I don't know if it's working for everybody else. I think it's too long, it's too arduous. It needs a refresh, and I'd like to see that factored into the plan. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Sim.
I agree. I don't know if you needed that.
Mr. Johnson, do you need a motion to that?
Once again, I defer that to an update before the next quarterly update with this, and we can look at priorities that would fall off with that. I agree. I think we need to look at the way that we do business. I think there's a number of ways we can streamline it. And, Acting Mayor McKenzie and I talked about this morning. We don't have to read the bylaw every time, right? We can introduce it once and then just talk. There's a bunch of things that we can do to streamline that we see as best practices in other communities that we can look at in the procedure bylaw. And once again, it's on my list. Was it sort of the top priority? No. But if council's saying that it is, absolutely we can look at that. And that would be appropriate to have a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that revisiting and reviewing and adapting the council procedure bylaw be brought forward in the next quarterly update for the operational plan and noting it as a strong priority.
A seconder on that? Second by Councillor Frizzle.
Discussion.
Yep. Oh, discussion.
I'll bite. I agree it needs an update. I think my only concern is what level of priority. I don't necessarily agree that it's a strong priority. I think we can't really determine that until we have it brought back on the next update and see what it might bump off. So more, not to say that it's not a priority or it is, it's just that we can't tell if it's a priority until we find out if it pushes our emergency management program back 6 months, then I'm less interested in that. But if it's going to bump something, minorly, well, then it's a different conversation. So my take would be, let's wait until we hear back from staff and then make our designation about where it fits in the priority scale. Does that make sense?
Sure. And my comment back to that is that it is council's playbook and it's not really working right now. So to me, it would be taking our 45 pages, making it more succinct, making it easier for an acting mayor responsibility, looking at meeting times, looking at a lot of different functions that are proving to be clunky. And I think as a result of making it a priority, we will find efficiencies that will actually smooth things to make it better, not only for council, but for staff and our community.
Councillor Brandon.
I actually kind of agree with that because if we don't have a base to work off of, we don't know where we're starting. So we kind of need our procedures to be able to tell us what order to act on, in my opinion.
So we have a motion. Do we have a seconder?
Councillor Frizzle, second that.
Okay. I'll call the
All those-
question. Call
All
the
those in
question.
favor?
All those in favor.
Councillor Herring, did you want to be opposed?
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Frizzle.
I noticed to develop a new grant and aid policy that considers council's directions is in here twice. Once is Q2 of 2025 and Q4 in 2024, and I'm not sure why. It just confused me for a while.
To Councillor Frizzle through Acting Mayor McKenzie, I was making amendment to push it to 2025 rather than 2024. We're just not going to get to it in 2024 with the other priorities we have on the plate.
Thank you.
If I could just mention, this is why we do this, so that you can hear why something's been delayed. And then if council's not happy with that, well, we can change our priorities to make sure that that happens there. This is what good governance is about. It is getting into the details, but that's why you do it quarterly, right? That's why you don't have to do it during your council update any longer, because you've got a process to be able to deal with this, and you get to see it in its totality moving forward.
Any other questions or comments? We're in our operation or strategical plans.
Just a comment this time, and I just want to say this is really helpful. This is such a great way for us to review this stuff and get a sense of where everything's at. Great work all around from the staff. This is really a step forward for us. So, are falling in here.
And I'll be completely honest with you, this was our staff that did this, right? Gave them the direction. They've come back with this with council. Yes, there's some revisions, and we're going to continue to refine it to make sure that it makes what council wants out of it. But this is what good governance is about, and I'm proud of what the team has put together here.
Awesome. Thank you. Anything else on there? We do have a recommendation. We're at that point.
I'll move that we receive it for information.
Perfect. Seconder on that. Councillor Bratton. All in favor? Thank you. Yeah, thank you, staff, for your work on that. Okay. Moving on, item 16.2, financial update to June 30th, 2024. Ms. Claassen, to speak to that, please.
Acting Mayor McKenzie and council have a short presentation I'd like to share with you. There we go. So just to begin, just want to make clear that the objectives of the financial update is to provide council with an overall financial update to ensure or to share with council how the financial figures are aligned with the budget bylaw. It encourages accountability as well as it provides some financial transparency and it reduces occurrences of unexpected results. This is our revenue financial, our Schedule A of financial revenues. Under the green arrows, you have the categories as per the financial bylaw. Under the red arrows is the financial plan. In the 2024 financial plan, you'll see 3 columns. The first column was the bylaw. The middle column is the amendments, and then the adjusted financial plan. So during the year, we've had some amendment resolutions from council, and those are mostly funding the additional capital projects values that we have in our resolutions. And then under the blue arrow is your actual year-to-date June 2024. So some things just to note and just to highlight quickly, the municipal taxation, we have the full amount of revenues there. It's good to note that our revenues collected as of July 2nd was about 92% of all taxation revenues. The second one to note is sales of services. Now that would include septage receiving, services such as, recreation services and things like that. We're right on target at 51%. So there's and ICBC sales and things like that. So it's all on target there. And then government transfers, in that category, we have 2. It's the small community investment grant for $446,000 and the climate action plan for $173,000. Now the climate action plan was 2 years worth, I believe, and it will be transferred to reserves. And so by the end of the year, you'll see it come out of there and transfer it to reserves. In other revenue, you see we're at 81% of the financial plan, and we're continue to see higher interest earnings than what we had planned. On our expenditure side, again, you'll see the other side of the amendments. You'll see that we have capital amendments of about $300,000. And just to summarize what those were, there was a additional $50,000 for the fire truck that came out of the fire reserve. The Zamboni, the purchase of the Zamboni is about $184,000. Even though we will get insurance proceeds for that, we still need to include it in our financial plan. And additional paving of roads, additional capital for roads was about $67,000. So that makes up your $300,000. You'll see that there is a $98,000 reallocation from the septage, or out of transportation into septage, and that was basically an administrative error when I was putting the financial plan bylaw together. It just linked it to the incorrect category, so we'll make that change. And something to remember here is that included in these numbers includes also the special projects, which is about $1.7 million. Of that, we still have 1.5 remaining to spend. So we haven't financially, I think we're working on a lot of these projects, but by the end of June, we haven't paid for a lot of these projects. And just to touch a little bit about the projects, you have the list on page 100 and 101 of the capital projects and the special projects. We have a total of 46 projects to be, we have them on our list this year. Not all of them will be completed, and some of them will be carried forward. And we have identified those in the report in your package. There's two corrections that I would like to identify. We have inadvertently marked the economic development refresh placeholder as inactive. It's in fact quite active. And we marked the development services refresh as inactive. It's quite active, as you probably know. Saying that, is there any questions you have on projects? We've answered some, but.
Councillor Sim?
Is there anything that you feel that we should be aware of, that you've got maybe some concerns that need some support, that need anything additional?
Well, we heard of one that we're going to bring to council, so we're going to bring the generators to council and hopefully next time. And we're also looking at the bridge repair, the Blue Bridge repair. We're going to finalize those numbers. The other large bridge with the that's going to be done next year. So the riprap, yeah, that will be done next year. So one item that's really exciting is we're going to use Questica to do our financial planning next year, and I'm hoping that we can improve on our allocation and timeline for these projects. So we have a tool now to use that will put the spending in the right year.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Bratton?
I just see under fleet equipment, we have sand and salt spreader with plow.
Yes.
Is that new? For some reason, I'm not remembering that.
It's not new. It was on the financial plan.
Oh, was
and
it?
It was
Okay.
approved by council.
Okay.
Any other questions for Ms. Clausen?
I'll move the recommendation that council receive the quarter ended June 30th, 2024 quarterly financial report.
Okay. Seconder on that? Councillor Frizzle, second. Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. And moving on to 16.3, 2025 financial plan schedule.
Acting Mayor McKenzie and council, I don't have a presentation for this one, but I'd like to just identify a few highlights. I just wanted to comment that financial planning is a continuous process. If you have the schedule in front of you, but really it should be in a form of a circle. Even though council may not see financial planning every month, staff in the background is planning every month. So you see certain ones here for council, but staff has a 2-page schedule with all the highlights and deadlines that they have to achieve to ensure that council is ready. We're ready for council's decisions. As mentioned earlier, staff will be using the Questica budget software. And the process that you have in front of you, it includes the permissive tax exemption discussion, as well as the grant and aid discussion for council. So that all those decisions can be embedded into the plan. Council sees that there is 2 public engagements. I believe last year we did 3, and we may want to do that again, but right now we've scheduled for 2. Strategic planning also, you'll notice it's right in the top of our list. And it's scheduled early in the process. Last year, I believe we were still finalizing it throughout the process, so scheduling it early will be beneficial for the financial planning process. Water and sewer rates need to be approved prior to the end of the year, so you'll see those before December 31st. And something just more of a comment from staff is staff looks to council for direction. If council would like a project or strategic direction, please let staff know. There's workshops, there is a committee of the whole conversations, and we just need a resolution to direct staff to put it into the financial plan. So,
Mr. Johnson?
So if I can clarify what Ms. Clausen was saying was, if you don't want to see a budget that has a 10.3% tax increase in it, give us some direction as to where you'd like to see the tax increase for the upcoming year. So then it gives us some goals to bring that back forward to council. Now there's some costs that we have to put into place, staffing, fuel, that's all going to lead to a budget. But what I dislike seeing is when a staff comes forward with a 9.3% increase to council and there's been no direction. And then it puts council right away, this isn't the direction we've been given, or we've asked for, nor have we been asked. So that's what Ms. Clausen is saying. We need to have more conversations about what that looks like, so it gives us some parameters, right? I don't want to bring you back something that's not what your intention is. Cost plus 1% or COLA or CPI. Some sort of direction like that is helpful when we're doing the budget. We're not asking for that for you today, but those are some of the questions that we're going to come back to you with so that we can meet a budget that meets your expectations and it's not a surprise.
Councillor Sim.
So if I'm reading that one correctly, so a committee of the whole, we could actually review the 2024 5-year plan. We could see what's existing there, look at what the year forward was looking like, and actually compare it to this new operational plan. So those 2 functions actually give us some direction so that we may be able to mitigate a lot of the business case development. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay.
Any other questions for Ms. Clausen there?
just want to clarify, all the, when staff is preparing the capital for the projects, they will be entering a business case for each of the projects, and that will be available for us to review in Open Book, which is open to the public, as well as in council, some of the categories. So the business case work for our staff continues.
Great, thank you. Councillor Sim.
So to your request about bringing forward information, I note on the financial strategic plan schedule, October the 15th, Committee of the Whole Financial Plan Workshop. Would it be appropriate to bring forward the 5-year plan for review prior to that meeting date, to at least plant that in advance? Or is that too soon, noting that the next quarterly update for the operations plan may not be ready. I just want to tie those two together. You've got a quizzical look on your face, so help me out there. Or I can help you out.
Are you requesting that a 5-year plan be brought forward October 15th?
I'm wondering how that fits in, because you've got a financial plan workshop, assumptions, service levels, and business cases. Typically what's been brought forward is that's when business cases have
Yes.
been put forward. But if we look at the 5-year financial plan, much of that should be done. And so should we be using that time to be looking at what's established and then a subsequent meeting for other business cases? Because if we're going to see there what our tax rate is sort of shaping up to be.
At October 15th, we will be focusing more on projects and assumptions. We will not have numbers, operational plans, labor budget ready.
Okay.
That won't be ready, but we could bring estimates.
Right, and we can bring a refresh about what we presented for our 5-year plan.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
That provides the guide,
Yep.
right? We don't want to adopt a plan that has no relevance. So the 5-year plan should have some meaning. The problem is when you're projecting, you can never predict what happens with oil, with labor costs, changes in government that all of a sudden change the employee tax, things that you're not really ready for. But what the intention would be is to bring more of a general approach. Okay, right now we're looking at probably a 6 or 7% budget increase. What does council see as a realistic opportunity or realistic number that you think the community or that the public would find palatable? That's what we want to have that conversation with. So we're not driving all of these plans that come forward that are unrealistic based on the expectations of council.
Any other questions or comments?
Just one, and that was for the public engagement. We did hear a number of people looking for some evening presentations, which we had done, but to do that maybe with some stronger advertising. I think that the participation, it wasn't as strong as we wanted, so whether or not that's because people found information elsewhere or we could do a better job of advertising. But that was a feedback that that I think we all heard.
Hey, there's a recommendation here that council approve the 2025 financial plan schedule is attached. Mover, Councillor Matheson. Second by Councillor Herring. All those in favor? Thank you. And moving on to 16.4, Development Services Update.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. This is a report providing an update with the grant that we received, as well as the details of the work plan. So you can see weeks 1 all the way through to weeks 19 to 32. So it's a big program. This is a bigger program than was initially anticipated when I came on board last year in November. Some of this work has been done. What I don't want to see is duplication. I don't want to be going back out to the same developers again, asking the same questions, because if I was a developer and this is the 3rd time I've been asked this question, I'd be frustrated. So what we're trying to do is dovetail this together. And because of the contractual amounts, we're going to have to go out for tender to get this work completed as per the purchasing policy. So the intention is to get the new CAO up to speed with where we're at, and he'll provide direction as to how he would like to see this move forward. So that's been my intention, to keep it moving. It's not moving as fast as I would like, but we've got other priorities at the moment as interim CAO, and we can turn our attention to that after the 15th. I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Councillor Herring.
Just to clarify, the total project budget, is that within the amount that we've received grant for?
$137,970, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Sim.
Currently, where does this sit in the operations plan?
Good question. It's not in there at the moment because I didn't want to encumber the new CAO with it.
I think it's a priority of council.
I'm happy to include that within it. I just didn't want to step on toes with somebody that's coming in, but I will include it because it is an important piece of work that needs to happen. What I don't want is what happened with economic development. When somebody left, that got sat on the corner of somebody's desk. The fear is that this might happen with this project as well if you don't have somebody leading it. Right now, I'm not sure that you've got the right person on staff to lead it because you don't have a lot of experience in the planning end. And it's going to be doing a lot of liaising with stakeholders, the community, and you have to build a repertoire with them. And bringing in a consultant from out of town often can't do that. So how we look at this project moving forward, I will include it in the operational plan with these items and with the timeline for the next update.
Thank you.
And perhaps the lens is if this is going to fall with the new CAO who is arriving in October, is it's an excellent opportunity to meet a number of our local developers, and it's an incredible opportunity to hear some of the community vision. So that's why, for me, I would stress it as something that is important. It has started last November, and a lot of our next steps for community growth are dependent on this. So I appreciate the respectfulness in which you held it off, but I would say that council has expressed that this is important, and the community has said that it's important.
I will make it so.
Perfect. Thank you.
Acting Mayor Mackenzie, I believe we just want a seconder for just to have that motion, just to add it onto the operational plan. If Councillor Sim is making that motion.
Second by Councillor Herring. Okay. And all those in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, item 16.5. Staff like to speak to our issues down at Dutch Lake.
Thank you. Council had asked a report be brought together about what could be done with goose and canine excrement in the Dutch Lake dock area. I think the number one thing that we can do is have our contractor properly dispose of the waste that's currently happening on site now. What I understand is that gets redistributed, and what we're going to be directing the contractor is to actually remove it and meet the standard for removing goose poo and dog doo-doo. Really, this is about ownership with dogs in a lot of cases. Nobody has ownership over geese, so that's why there's some recommendations in here about deploying solar-powered strobe lighting to disrupt goose sleep cycles, place reflective bird tape on docking locking pins, position a fake coyote or owl near the dock. I've got one of those at my house. It makes a huge difference for the geese going into my pond. So that is an opportunity, I think, that these are small steps that we can make. What you don't see in here is a goose addling program or taking it to that next step. Let's see if we can make some incremental small steps with these sort of recommendations that have been brought forward to you. But first and foremost, as Mr. Mayor has said to me, is that our contractor can do an increased level of service, which I think will really help in that area, as well as the education component, because I'm not sure that it's residents and their dogs as opposed to out-of-town folks that don't understand what we expect when people have their pets on public beaches, and that's clean up after your pet. It's not the pet's fault, it's the owner's fault. So we'll do a better job of education as well.
Councillor Herring.
This one's tricky for me. The boat launch area, our policies on how it's used is vastly different from how the public uses it. Yeah. And this is one we've discussed in the past. We've really wrestled with this. I guarantee there are more locals having their dog off leash at that boat launch than there are locals launching boats at that boat launch on a daily basis. Like, just based on personal observation, I don't have data collected on that, but I see far more people down there with dogs than I do with boats. So I think in the past we've made decisions based on what insurance will allow us with motorized boat access on that boat launch, but that doesn't actually jive with how people use that area. There's no swimming there. There's always people swimming there. There's no dogs off leash there. People are always swimming their dogs there. I think we have to reopen that conversation. I think we need to remove motorized boat access from that boat launch and move to a kayak and handheld launch only in order to actually align the use of that dock with how people are already using it. Because right now, if we go to this level and enforce leash laws, for example, that doesn't align with the current use. I don't see it. Why remove goose poop if we actually, it's not for the public to use that way. It's for a boat launch. The goose poop doesn't affect the boat trailers. So my question is, how are we using that space? You know, and is it time to reopen that conversation?
Councillor Broughton?
Reopening the conversation would be good, but you can't take away the use of motorized boat usage out of there. It may not be high usage. It might be usage at times you don't see. So they might be there at 3 a.m. to 8 a.m. instead of 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. kind of thing, which is when most of the dog use and human use is, you know, utilizing that area. I think we have to be very careful with that, because then what happens is the resorts will get inundated with people wanting to release their boats from them. Maybe it's a revenue opportunity, I'm not sure. But I think the pushback would be our fishermen population would be something to withhold.
Councillor Sim?
What a great question to add to our Dutch Lake Corridor discussions. Really, how do we use our public spaces? It ties into that vision, and it does impact. And I think it's good to get feedback from the public on how they want to see the area used, how it is being used, and moving forward. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Thank you. Councillor Frizzle?
Is there anywhere on that lake for a different boat launch location? Not that we own, no.
Mr. Carmichael?
Yeah, Acting Mayor, there is a piece of land that the district owns that goes into a trail system, like where the Painted Turtle restaurant. When you go down that street, you take a left. There's a trail. That's actually a road right away that is owned by the district. So, and it is quite wide. Like, it's a wider than 20 meters. Potentially, it could become a boat launch in there. Haven't surveyed it. I know it's quite steep in there. There would be some challenges, but something maybe worth looking into.
Interesting.
Could we make a motion to bring this back for discussion? I don't know. Because I think it's something definitely needs to be talked about.
Yeah, the use definitely does down there. I don't know if I'm ready to pull the boat launch from the public at this point in time. Not just in general, that would be when my time in these chairs are done, before I pull that away. But definitely be interested in looking at other options, because you see how the demographic has changed with things such as, you know, with the kayaks and everything else, just to try and meet in the middle somewhere and make everyone happy. We see how hard that is, but I see where you're going with that, Bill. Thank you.
I think Jason has some.
Mr. Johnson, go ahead.
Yeah, so this doesn't go off into the ether. What council can do is put this as something to consider for the 2025 strategic priorities. We're not going to fix it this year, right? It's not in the work plan. To make this a priority, we'd have to change some other things. But this is a great work plan item for 2025. So that way it gets put on a motion for council for the books to consider for the next strategic planning session. And it doesn't get lost.
Questions or no? Mr. Councillor Herring?
Yeah, I would like to make a motion that we include this discussion as part of the 2025 strategic planning process.
Have a seconder? No. Councillor Bratton? Okay. Discussion on that?
Yeah, so the discussion, I think that's a great idea, but I think that the discussion will be more fruitful as long as we acknowledge we also want it to be a part of that Dutch Lake corridor discussion. So we're getting wide feedback, and it's not just a narrow focus. It has been a wide discussion.
Mm-hmm. Perfect, thank you. Anyone else? And all those in favor? Perfect, thank you.
Do we have to go back to the actual, this? No? Are we done?
No,
No.
just
Oh, it's
information.
information. Sorry.
That's okay. Okay, moving on, item 16.6. We'll let Councillor Sim step out here for a moment. Okay, road maintenance contract. Staff, would you like to speak to this, please?
Yes, Acting Mayor and Council put a staff report together. We had put out an RFP looking for a roads contractor in early June, and it carried on for 5 weeks. We extended it a couple times. We had quite a bit of interest, but in the end, we only ended up getting 2 bids from Boro Enterprises and from Black River. And then we scored the 2 contracts using the scoring system outlined in the RFP, and Boro scored better despite having a higher value for the contract. And the 2 prices were, Boro Enterprises were $799,000 for a year, and Black Rivers was $582,000. The difference in scoring was like Boro had lost, based on the scoring system, 18.6 points based on the price difference. But they were very able to make that up in the experience and capability section of the RFP. So we have recommended, on the next page, some changes just to try and reduce the cost. So we've taken out, we had doing calcium and grading twice per year of all the roads, and we took the calcium out, the one in the fall, which saved about $30,000. Talking with the contractor, it's not totally required. So, and then removing the roadway patrolling for the summer, since the only summer work they're really doing is grading and mowing in this contract. So we had the roadside mowing. So we'd taken that out, and so that would come in-house to Public Works, doing the roadway inspections, kind of shared between myself and the supervisor. So that reduced the contract to $729,100 from $799, which got us closer to our budget. So within $60,000 over budget. And in those discussions of trying to reduce the cost, it came up about the small work, giving Boro the first right of refusal on the small work instead of going out for RFQ for every little job that was the things that were identified in the tenders, like the gravel shoulder maintenance and sweeping, culvert cleaning, ditching, that sort of thing. So in the end, I have recommended Boro Enterprises for a 3-year, it says 3-year road maintenance contract, but it should say 3-year plus one, so I'd have to amend that.
So can you just confirm what that wording would look like for council for us, Mr. Carmichael?
Pardon me. So then we have the option to extend for an extra year twice. Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
2-1-year extensions.
Yes.
2 1-year extensions should be added, consideration of 2 1-year extensions at the end of the contract. So it should be that council award Boro Enterprises a 3-year roads maintenance contract in the amount of $729,000 for the first year, with CPI increase for each of the following years, with consideration of extension of 2 1-year extensions. And I just like to also mention that this is going to have an impact on taxation next year. This year, because we didn't have a roads maintenance contract for a period of year, we were able to save some money. But from what we had in the 5-year financial plan, the consideration wasn't at this amount. It was at the previous amount. I think it was $650. So there is a change, and that will be factored into taxation. So we're talking about a 2% lift based on this contract alone. So it's starting to really push up against what a palatable tax increase will be. We wish it would have been lower, but there's a lot of costs that have increased in the contract: labor costs, oil costs. But we're here to answer questions for council.
Councillor Frizzle?
I'm not surprised that the contract has gone up, and everything in the world's gone up, so just labor and equipment and gas and all. But my question is, with the 5 extras that you have on here with roadside mowing, et cetera, is that in the contract right now, and that can be pulled out for Public Works to do? Is that how that works?
Yeah, so if we chose to do, like the shouldering on our own, then
So it is in the contract right now for the contractor to do.
it's not included in the price. It would
It's
be,
not included in the price. So if the contractor did do it, that would be
that would come out of the
an extra
operational
cost.
budget, yeah.
So then it would be a question of how much does it cost Public Works to do to how much it would cost the contractor to do.
Right, and for some of it, we don't have the equipment to do it at this time,
Yeah.
but looking into the future, we would like to get some of the equipment to do this type of work, so.
Okay, so what I'm hearing then is these 5 things there would be an extra cost on top of that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Herring?
So the cost to perform the inspections of the road, do you have an estimate of how much that will cost internally in terms of dollars of your time and your supervisor's time?
I didn't work it out in dollars, but it will add a couple hours a week or take away a couple hours a week from each of us, yeah.
So not massively significant. We're not talking about a $60,000 increase to your time sort of thing. It's
No, yeah.
okay.
Councillor Bratton?
So last year with the contractor, there was not very much sand used, and when we had to call in another contractor, there was quite a bit used, which was thankful. It was great. I'm just wondering, is there checks and balances put in place if the contractor ends up needing to use an exorbitant amount of sand for sweeping, and we do the sweeping? How does that all get looked after, and what's the cost involved? We can't say cost at this point, how do we adjust for that?
That's a good question. It's difficult to tell a road contractor that they're using too much sand. You're taking on some liability when you do that.
For sure.
So I do want to bring to council the sweeping, kind of a summary report of where we ended up with costs from last year doing it a different method, and what I'd like to do next year. I'd like to have that at the next council meeting as well, but I don't have a good answer for you on that question.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Carmichael, I just had one question, just to refresh myself here. Where what roads are calcium? Is it just the Dunn Lake Road up to the district boundary, or where else does that get done?
We have about 10 kilometers of gravel road, so there's, trying to remember the names of them. I think it was Haywood, Grant Road, Raft River North, parts of it, Dunn Lake Road.
Oh, down and below.
And I think there's one out Highway 5. Oh yeah, Bow Hill.
Okay, no, yeah, a couple I forgot about. Okay, thank you for that.
And Mr. Carmichael knows a lot of these details based on what he had to do last year with our previous contractor.
Right.
And when you talk about, a couple hours for himself and the supervisor, what I'm looking forward to is moving forward where he doesn't have to spend an inordinate amount of time managing a contract like what happened with our previous experience.
I have one more question.
Councillor Bratton?
So if we take it in-house, is there already, I'm assuming there's budget already accounted for, allocated to look after this, and what's that amount? What extra do we have in the budget to be able to take some of these projects in-house? Is that clear? I don't know, I think I screwed that up.
I didn't quite follow the question, I suppose.
So it's going to cost more money if we take projects in-house. Is it the taxation rise next year that would cover it, or do we have money already allotted
No,
at the beginning? of the year.
I guess if I did a business case to buy more equipment so that we could do things in-house, there should be a cost savings as opposed to hiring a contractor to do it.
Okay. How do we save money when we buy a machine, have to train a person, and or is there cost to all that and getting the vehicles required? I struggle to see where the savings is between a contractor and us accumulating all the extra equipment and training and humans.
I will bring you a detailed business case when I do make that request. Yeah.
That was really clunky, sorry.
Any other questions for staff? Councillor Herring.
Yeah, I'm willing to move the recommendation that we award Boro Enterprises a 3-year road maintenance contract plus 2 opportunities for 1-year extensions in the amount of $729,100 for the first year with a CPI increase for each of the following years.
Second by Councillor Frizzle. All those in favor? Okay. Thank you for that. It's weird.
I owe a lot of money in this wear jar though for not selling.
Okay, moving on. Item 16.7. Mr. Johnson, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. This is a report for the termination of water services to 373 Clearwater Valley Road. It's not often that we bring a recommendation like this forward through to council. It's always tough for us to say we're going to shut somebody's water off. Unfortunately, in this case, the property owner has a number of outstanding bills, of which the current water balance is $16,566.92, which is well above the threshold that I think is acceptable that other taxpayers should have to pay for a property owner that isn't paying for their water bill for what they're using. So notices have been given. My request of council is that council confirms termination of water services to 373 Clearwater Valley Road due to unpaid water bills. We gave the property owner notice that this would be coming forward on this agenda. We've received no reply to any of the correspondence that has been dropped off by a process server and served by registered mail. This is a tough decision for council to make, but nonetheless, other taxpayers shouldn't be subsidizing somebody that's not paying their water bills. It's unfair to the other taxpayers in the community.
Councillor Sim.
If the bill is paid by the 30th, then the termination would be discontinued. Yeah.
Correct. I'd also like to note that in the end of the day, we're going to get paid because what happens, these bills then get transferred to taxes. And if a person hasn't paid their property taxes for a number of years, they come up for tax sale. Currently, this property will be coming up for tax sale in October because of unpaid taxes. Once again, if they get caught up with their back taxes, then we don't move forward to property tax sale, which happened with this property last year, which was all in a public forum.
Councillor Herring.
I'd like to move the recommendation that council confirm termination of water services to 373 Clearwater Valley Road due to unpaid water bills.
Second by Councillor Bratton. All those in favor? Thank you. And moving on to 16.8. Staff, please.
Thank you, Acting Mayor McKenzie. This is a Section 57 notice on title for building bylaw violations at 373 Clearwater Valley Road. Attached to this report, you'll see that the TNRD, who is contracted to do our building inspection matters for us, went and did an inspection on July 25th and noted that there were a number of buildings that were in non-compliance whereby no building permits were taken out. One particular building was a sunroom addition being used as a residential space to a pull trailer, and the other one is a placement of an ATCO trailer without a permit, of which we understand people are currently living within that building. Given that there has been no building permits, there's been no check on life safety matters, It's important that anybody that's looking at this title is aware that there are building permit violations and potentially safety violations for the people that are actually living there, given that nothing has been inspected or meets the district standards outlined in the building bylaw. It is for those reasons that the recommendation is that council direct staff to file a notice on title under section 57 of the community charter. The notice will formally document the building bylaw contraventions, alert prospective purchasers to potential issues with the property, encourage the current property owner to resolve the infractions. Once again, this notice was provided to the property owner and we've received no reply.
Councilor Herring.
I'd like to move the recommendation that we direct staff to file the notice on property title under section 57 of the community charter.
Second by Councilor Bratton. All those in favor? Okay, next up, item 16.9, BC Transit Report, AOA.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you'll recall, earlier this spring, there was indications that BC Transit wanted to move to a new contract model for providing BC Transit services to the community of Clearwater. Not only Clearwater, but a number of other communities within the region, including Merritt, including Ashcroft, including Cache Creek, whereby they'd be moving away from the current provider, which is Yellowhead Community Services, that have provided bus services for a number of years. And they're looking towards going to a for-profit contract model. What you'll see is there was a request from BC Transit to come forward and have a meeting with council. Since this email has come forward, there's also been an update to the TNRD whereby BC Transit kind of did a BC Transit 101 with here's the annual operating agreement, here's what the costs are. What council will recall is that YCS at the end of the meeting whereby BC Transit request was reviewed, requested that the CEO of BC Transit come and have a conversation with council. What the recommendation to council is that council invite BC Transit representatives to attend an upcoming council meeting to, 1, provide a comprehensive overview of the proposed contracting strategy, 2, explain potential impacts on Clearwater's transit service, 3, answer questions from council and the public, and discuss next steps in the engagement process. You'll note that they've requested an in-camera meeting. Council can do that after they hear the presentation and whether or not that you feel that that's appropriate. This is provided to you for your information and feedback, and it is a decision. I should have checked that off on this report. It's not just information.
Councilor Sim.
So I'm wondering how at a council meeting there could be questions from the public. How would that work?
Well, you could suspend the rules of order and allow members of the public to ask questions after their presentation, if so council so choose to do so.
Is this best suited at a council meeting or committee of the whole meeting?
I would recommend a committee of the whole meeting because then the rules are a lot less tight than what we've got here today, and it allows for a more iterative conversation back and forth with BC Transit and the public.
Councilor Herring.
Yeah, I'm happy to move the recommendation. I would definitely like to hear from them. And yeah, I think if we just want to amend that to be at a committee of the whole meeting rather than council meeting, that sounds great.
Seconder.
I'll second that. Okay. And then discussion, just to also make sure that that meeting is well publicized about that agenda item. I think we've heard a number of people within the community have concerns about modifying, changing that transit portion. It is a big part of our budget. So as long as that was informed, and I like the idea of suspending the rules of order. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Okay.
Acting Mayor McKenzie.
Oh, sorry.
I'm just wondering if we want to make a motion to extend the meeting past 5 and do a short recess at this time.
No, let's keep going and let's get her done.
Yeah, I agree. We're not close. Let's keep this through.
It's just my thought.
Thank you. Yeah, let's do it. Okay. 16.10, 2024 to 2034 Community Works Fund Agreement. Staff?
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
I'm just going to move the recommendation. It's a great report.
Oh. Seconder on that? Councillor Matheson, all in favor? Thank you. Okay, 16.11. Staff again, please.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. This is the Rainbow Dock petition results. This is a for information report. The information contained in the report notes that the petition was submitted, and our respective review shows that it didn't meet the requirements under the community charter to be a valid petition, but that doesn't mean that it's not a valid petition for information. What it means is it's not a valid petition under the Act, but council can choose to do what it is that you would like with the results, and this is providing you with that information.
Councillor Sim.
Thanks very much. I first of all want to say thank you to the organizer of the petition. It was a way to activate community voice. How it then parlayed out into a variety of other discussion streams was tricky. But if I were to pay attention to what the core message was, is that the community is looking to provide feedback on decisions. And it goes back to the theme of this particular meeting, which has been lessons learned. And this particular project was controversial. And one of the things that concerned me throughout the whole process is it became an either or, as opposed to what is our community vision of it. And so to me, the petition just saw an impetus for please listen to your community better. And so for that, thank you very, very much. Moving forward as to what to do, I see this again as being part of this Dutch Lake corridor as an example of how we maybe didn't get it right. And that there were elements that council made a decision that was a little hasty. We thought it was really good, and it's why government sometimes works slow. It's because that there is that pause for reflection. But I think we've captured that in previous meetings. So where do I see going forward with this? We now have a new art policy. I think that that's also important. At that June 18th meeting, we also saw the presentation for 3 people who I thought brought forward some really great ideas about benches, about installations, about plaques. And those are the types of discussions that I would really like to see as part of how do we make Dutch Lake the jewel, the gem, the valuable asset and the loved asset it is for all community members. So to me, what I learned this summer is our community is our greatest resource, and we need to make sure that we are listening, and we always foster ways that the community feels heard, and it is not an either or, it is how we can just listen.
Any comments? Thank you for that, Councillor Sim. Okay, moving on. 16.
You know, I think I do just want to say one thing, just in case there is any doubt, is that this petition was brought forward with, you know, an expression of this doesn't resonate for me and it's not what I want. So what I'm saying is not that I want to dismiss that, is that I think that it is reflection and hearing from people as we move forward for next summer. And it is important to incorporate some of those messages that we had heard from the presentation for next year. So it is not avoiding it. It is not making a decision. It is making sure as part of that Dutch Lake corridor discussion that we open up the discussion to hear from other people.
Okay, thank you for that. Moving on, I'm 16.12. Clearwater Site Assessment, 2024 Medivac Helipad. Staff, would you like to speak to this, please?
Yes, thank you, Acting Mayor McKenzie. What we have for you is sort of the tail end of a fairly lengthy process just in terms of getting the site assessment. It's been ongoing for quite a few years. This was initially sort of passed over to us from the TNRD, who were founded in our jurisdiction at that point in time, which is great. I'm by no means an expert on helicopter landing sites, but I did work with the third-party consultant throughout the process to get this done. We did two sites primarily because of how we applied for the funding through the BC Air Access Program. We initially started with sort of the John McMahon Park down by the Riverside because Interior Health said that they weren't willing to sort of allow us to utilize their lands. Halfway through the process, they did change their mind and were willing to work with us. That's why we sort of did end up looking at both sites. Our primary focus is on option 1, right beside the hospital, because that is where it makes the most sense. Site 2 down by the river, although it does have lower construction costs, it does still require ground ambulance transport to bring them down, which does sort of remove a lot of the benefit. Beyond that, I'm happy to try and answer any questions best I can, keeping in mind that I'm not an expert.
Councillor Frizzle.
I know that at the John McMahon site, it can't have certain helicopters. I'm assuming they would be a medevac would be fine, but what about a forestry? Say, if there was a fire or whatever.
That's
I
quite
don't know.
likely correct for Council Frizzle through the acting mayor. It will accommodate helicopters up to 14.6 meters, and that would encompass most of the current fleet of BC air ambulances. It likely might not encompass some of the wildfire helicopters, which are larger, so that would be a disadvantage. However, it's very unlikely that they would utilize the option 1. So if forestry did require a landing site, it's not like they would be able to utilize the area by the hospital.
That makes sense.
Councillor Herring.
In terms of other large helicopters, for example, military helicopters, which are often used in emergency evacuations, if we were cut off, would they be able to land at the McMahon site?
I guess that depends on the time of year. For larger scale evacuations, when I did sort of take this into consideration for sort of what our use cases were, the helipad for the hospital needs to be available sort of year round, of course, due to, sort of always needing evacuations throughout the year. What did sort of come into my mind was that wildfire helicopters, SAR, those items that really needed sort of summer uses, we have no shortage of pretty large fields around that can be utilized. So the use case wasn't always there to sort of need a helipad for just those scenarios. So it stopped making sense that we needed sort of that tri-role helipad.
Thank you.
Councillor Frizzle.
So option 1 is the one at the hospital where all the trees had to be removed and it is impeding on that pathway that is used a lot.
Councillor Frizzle through Acting Mayor McKenzie, that is correct. Quite a substantial amount of tree removal is required. Very sad to see. I did walk through there with the consultant. Beautiful forest. The path would still be allowed to be there. It wouldn't actually remove the path. There would just be warning signs placed up that sort of alert anyone using the path that there may be helicopters sort of coming through. It is a pretty significant trade-off.
Councillor Sim.
What does Interior Health and staff have? What's their input?
The feedback I've heard from Interior Health was that they did primarily support option 1, being right outside their door, that was the best option for them.
And by Interior Health, was that Clearwater Interior Health?
Yes.
Okay.
That was
recognizing that there would be the impact of the trees and trail.
Yeah, that's correct.
Councillor Bratton.
If the tree falling is of a situation, is there cost trade allowed to happen there? Job trade? Like if people donated their time to fall the trees, would that be allowed?
Yes, and I believe the consultant did mention that at one point in time that the budgets sort of that were estimated are based on that, but oftentimes he he did recommend that other community partners might be able to donate a lot of time or land clearing, or so the costs could come down in those scenarios.
Right.
Councillor Herring.
So with the cost of preparing a Class B estimate versus a Class D, that's a significant potential increase. 21 to 70,000 is what the staff report says. What is the likelihood that we have a grant funding source available within the period of time that a Class B estimate would be considered still relevant, valuable?
Councillor Herring through Acting Mayor McKenzie. Great question. It's the BC Air Access Program, which is annual, which does provide for construction costs for these types of facilities up to $1 million. So there is a very good chance that if we do get a Class B estimate, which this grant requires, that we'd be able to move straight into the application process for that.
Councillor Sim.
On that same vein, does that tie into any opportunities with emergency management, noting that the highway is often closed down?
I'm not sure how it would tie into emergency management in that scenario. It would certainly be noted in a grant application that we would highlight the needs and why we want it. Even some of the interior health personnel weren't quite sure why we wanted this helipad. They were thinking that we were trying to direct, patients directly to it, where, if they were already in the air, of course they would be going straight to Kamloops. It's not our, intent that we're bringing patients in. It's more for stabilizing patients and then sending them to Kamloops where it's required. Once they understood that, they were more on board with why we actually wanted this helipad.
Councillor Frizzle.
And on that note, do you have any idea how many times that would be in use? How many times does a helicopter pick somebody up here?
Currently, the helicopters up here about 12 to 14 times a year. It could actually see an increase in use because doctors might be more likely to send a patient via air ambulance versus ground ambulance if it were available right there.
Councillor Sim.
Based on historical use, if we go with the location by the river, how many evacuations might be missed because we chose a smaller size? I wasn't clear in the report what's used and what is being chosen moving forward.
Yeah, Councillor Sim through Acting Mayor McKenzie. If we went with the park option number 2, we wouldn't miss any medical evacuations as all current BC Air Ambulance helicopters could land there. So currently we wouldn't miss any.
Councillor Herring.
How many instances of, once the patient transport network has approved the use of the helicopter to transport a patient, how many times has it happened that we were unable to transport the patient due to not having a helipad?
Councillor Herring through Acting Mayor McKenzie. I don't have that number. I believe currently they're operating frequently out of near the Blackpool Fire Hall. I don't think, I haven't heard of any recent, in the last 2 years, times that they've been turned around at any point in time. Obviously, there is continuing issue with utilizing the Blackpool Fire Hall in that area simply because of the regulations required around, more than 3 times they're supposed to be landing at a designated helipad. That was some of the impetus to actually doing this.
Yeah, I understand the policy. I'm just having trouble clicking into we spend $650,000 on this. What does it change service-wise, right? And I see that the BC ambulance policy is more than 3 times at a helipad, but it's never stopped them from sending a helicopter. They've never told a sick patient, we're not transporting you because we landed 3 times at Blackpool.
The other opportunity this does open up is nighttime operations, and that is a big one. Whereas now they would, never be able to operate at night. They would be able to land at the new facility at nighttime in the dark.
Without FLIR? They wouldn't need to re-outfit their fleet?
There's actually 2 options there, depending on the sort of the Class B estimate and whether or not lighting is installed at the heliport. If lighting is installed, they wouldn't need to use the FLIR. If there is no lighting, they can actually operate under the night vision only landing based on a current exemption from Transport Canada.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
If council wants additional information on the number of landings and all that, we can get that, right? We just have to ask the consultant. You can defer this pending additional information.
Councillor Herring.
Yeah, I would like to defer this for
Yep.
further information. I just think there's some questions here that I'm not understanding the motivation fully. So I would like to hear from number of landings, potential policy. Also, if BC Ambulance is actually operating a shift on their helicopter at night currently, because my understanding is they don't have FLIR on their helicopters, so they can't land anywhere else right now. Do they have a staffed shift to work this? So even if we have the helicopter there, is BC Ambulance going to run it at night?
Councillor Bratton.
And just supplemental to that is a winter operation. What does that entail for plowing and keeping it clear for usage?
Yeah, so Councillor Bratton, I'll go back to Councillor Herring momentarily here. After it's completely constructed, that would be operations of the facility would be taken over by Interior Health. They would be responsible for clearing it in the wintertime, which they would do. So that wouldn't fall on us to operate it. Okay. Going back to Councillor Herring, they do have currently 24-hour crews on their air ambulances. Part of the impetus as well is that a lot of these landings are being sort of controlled by Blackpool Fire Department. They are volunteers. It is a temporary basis. They're landing on private property currently, which they don't have a formal agreement. It could be pulled at any point in time. So just there is a lot of push for why it's been done. It has been identified for over 2 decades at this stage.
Councillor Sim.
I'm going to move to defer this until we can get some more information.
Second by Councillor Frizzle. All in favor? Moving on to bylaws, we do have one here, item 17.1, the traffic and MTI bylaw amendment, bylaw number 304. And staff, would you like to speak to that, please?
I'd like to first start off by introducing Rod Tillett, our new bylaw enforcement officer, to not only council but to the community. Started with us a number of weeks ago, and as a CAO, I haven't heard anything about him, which is a good thing. He's out there meeting with members of the public. A lot of the complaints that we've had on stream, bylaws an art, not a science, and so far it's been artful what I've seen in the delivery.
Yes. Councillor Sim.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you could just clarify. I believe that this is just a part-time position. Is that correct?
That's correct. It is a part-time position. We're keeping track of. One of the things we have to get towards is metrics. How many bylaw complaints did we deal with this quarter, and why? And do we have the same number of bylaw complaints, which means maybe the bylaws aren't good enough? And if there's not complaints about dogs, well, maybe we're not regulated enough. Like, these are the questions that council needs to see. Is it unsightly premises? Is it dog complaints? So you can see where the trends are coming for and when, and then we can predict what we need in terms of being proactive, because this is one of the services that council said we want to see improved. That's why you see a complete change in the way we do this. It's no longer reporting to the fire chief. It reports to the director of corporate services, who manages all of bylaws together. So it is a real whole fresh change and perspective of the way we do bylaw enforcement.
Councillor Sim.
So supplemental to that, I think it wasn't just necessarily council, but it was certainly in response to a number of citizens coming forward saying, we've brought these forward, nothing seems to be done, and now we've got somebody who's going to apply some teeth, being able to apply some metrics to it, as you're suggesting, and where then it needs to fit for the budget. Is it enough? Is it not enough? And then a community response and whether it's favorable or how it's now perceived. So thank you for that oversight.
And the end of the year, that's our intention. Did it work? Did we say what we were going to do? Did we miss the mark, and where did we miss the mark? And it goes back to the metrics. Yes, we're able to deal with this complaint in 2 weeks, because what council hasn't said is we want bylaw complaints done in 5 days, right? We have no metrics of that right now. So if we get towards resolving these complaints sooner, you can see the timeline and have we got it correct.
Any other questions? Councillor Herring.
I'm willing to move the recommendation that traffic and MTI bylaw amendment, bylaw number 304, 2024, be introduced and read a first and second.
Second.
Okay, second by Councillor. Okay. Okay, District of Clearwater bylaw number 304, 2024, bylaw to amend bylaw 160, traffic and use of highways, and bylaw 221, municipal ticketing information. Whereas section 137 of the community charter provides that the power to adopt a bylaw includes the power to amend or repeal it. And whereas the Council of the District of Clearwater wishes to amend bylaw 160, traffic and use of highways, and bylaw 221, municipal ticket information. Now therefore, the Council of the District of Clearwater in open meeting assembles and acts as follows. This bylaw may be cited as the Traffic and MTI Bylaw Amendment, bylaw number 304, 2024. All those in favor? Thank you.
And I'd like to recommend that traffic and MTI bylaw amendment, bylaw number 304, be read a third time.
Thank you. Second by Councillor Bratton, moved by Councillor Herring, thank you. Okay, just, that's right. District of Clearwater by, oh, sorry, no. Oh, okay. No. District Clearwater bylaw number 304, 2024. A bylaw to amend bylaw 160, traffic and use of highways, and bylaw 221, municipal ticket information. All those in favor? Thank you. And
Yes, actually, Mayor McKenzie, we just needed to backtrack to the one late item that we added, 16.13.
yes, thank you.
And specifically, we just wanted to discuss the September 3rd council meeting. We do have two back together, September 3rd and September 10th. Don't feel that we're going to be able to fill both agendas, so one of them might be superfluous. I don't, Mr.
Yeah, the September 3rd meeting, on the 10th, we have Julie Kimmel coming to present the economic development plan. We've got a number of things that are coming forward on the agenda, but having two meetings in a row like that, I'm not sure that it's a good use of council's time at this point to go through two meetings that quickly. September 3rd and 10th.
Move to cancel the September 3rd meeting.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Second by Councillor Herring. All those in favor? Opposed? Noted?
Council procedure bylaw.
Oh.
We'll let you slide out.
Oh, just cancel it. It's still going to happen. You're canceling the 10th? No, the 3rd. Yeah, but there was always one scheduled on the 10th. No, it should have been on the 3rd. Staff.
No, but I'm just saying that I always schedule myself.
And just for clarification, we did schedule on September 3rd and the 10th.
And I did, I always schedule my thing, this is all me, but I also have the mayor coming.
It's always been in there when we did the reval. Yeah, no, and that's fine. I'm just saying that these are the examples of why we need the council procedure bylaw for us to look at the comprehensive meeting scenario.
Yep. Okay. Thank you for reminding me about that one, staff. I forgot about 16.
Maybe BC Transit wants to attend the lunch.
What a great idea.
Okay, moving on. Stop me if something catches your eye here. Correspondence, we get a letter from Forestry Works BC. 18.1, and also a letter from the City of Vernon for eliminating fossil fuel funding of Silga and UBCM. And yes, it was sent there. Yes, I believe so. No notices, motion. Public question, comments, items pertaining to the agenda. What do we have out there? Come on up.
Hi, I'm Rachel Asker. I'd like to note that the theme of public consultation and opportunity for public comment really resonates with me. And following the suggestion of an evening council meeting, perhaps you would consider 1 or 2 Saturday meetings. This is a real hub on the weekends, so that might bring some more people in. Just a suggestion. But I also would like to thank Councillor Sim for her comments today. I feel like she really understood my intentions with the petition. And then lastly, I'd like to note that in advance of handing over the petition names list, it was made clear by the corporate officer that once the petition list was received, it would become a part of the public record. Therefore, the statement in the CAO report stating that I refuse for the names to be released is not factual. And that's all I've got.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Asker. Hello.
Name is Wendy Grimm. Can you hear me? Okay, so just a couple things about the dock, and that was, I do know that Valley Pride did have funding in place for the sidewalk. They had several donors already said they would donate to that. So I don't know why it jumped from Valley Pride having the funding to all of a sudden the district saying, we're going to do this, we're going to pay for it. I think your job was just to say, we will allow this to happen. I don't think your job was really to fund it, because I think the funding was in place. I might be wrong about that, but you can ask me later or tell me later. Also too, I mentioned about the cost of the dock, and I think it was $2,400 was the cost, the actual cost. So I'd like to know the cost of the dock, and I'd also like to know the maintenance of the dock, and I had spoken before, and I haven't got that information back. I haven't contacted anybody on council to find out the actual cost of maintaining, but they were going to get back to me. Okay. And also I not requested, but I mentioned about the oath you take, who you are actually, when you get signed in to be a councillor, who do you take the oath to? Is it to the city of the people of Clearwater? Is it, y'all sign an oath, I know that. Can I have a copy of that oath as to what you pledge to when you become councillor and mayors? If I could have that, I would appreciate that. And also that, I'm not sure about the federal government, well, I'm sure about the federal government, but I'm not sure about the municipal government. When you guys come into power, that you actually get to have 4 years. And when I spoke and asked Mr. Herring, Councillor Herring, if he said he was not neutral, and asked him if he was therefore was he biased, and he said yes. So I'm just wondering, is the municipality of Clearwater beholden to its shareholders? Are they beholden to who? They have a 4-year contract when we vote for you. Is that contract actually for the people, or is it for you guys to do your will? Like, who are you actually accountable to as a corporation for the shareholders? I don't know that. I couldn't find it online. If I could have that information, I would appreciate that. I just think that by taking on that money for something that was already donated, that it just seemed that it's kind of a bad use of taxpayers' money. And I just think that any money that you are spending for projects, and I do appreciate that this was all brought up today, that yes, it's time to maybe engage the public on what it's going to cost us. Give us a proposal saying this is what we want to do, this is A, B, or C. And I'm really liking that general level of communications now with the public, and I think that's a great step to go. This was all written down before the fact, that people are now acknowledging that maybe we need to consult the public a little bit more if we are actually the public and we actually do have a say. If we don't have a say, then we're all wasting our time here, and you guys can go ahead and have your meetings and do whatever you want to do. So I don't know at what level we have that consultation and what level we have to say yes or no, or is it official petitions every time that something after the fact happens? Because I don't think that's a good way to run anything. So I just think that the use of our tax dollars need to be accounted for. no matter how small, no matter how big. So if I could have that information, I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. And I always appreciate you being here at the meetings. It's a big time commitment, and you're thoughtful about your questions and the information that you're receiving. A lot of the questions that you've asked about today can actually be found on the BC government about responsibilities.
Okay.
And I think that that would be really helpful to have. In terms of the oath of office, that's actually part of public record, and I believe that that was at the inauguration meeting where you can see that there was that pledge.
And that's
Absolutely. So you can go back to, I guess it must have been November, December of 2022. So that would have been there. And I think that that meeting also would have been recorded. So you could have done that. I do note that our corporate officer and team have done a really good job about updating all of our meeting minutes and that.
Yep.
I think that there is another point to be considered here, which is the fact that, council and community, it is a dance. And so we've admitted on a number of occasions that we acted impulsively, and we've learned that. Thank goodness we have learned that on, I believe that the final project dollar amount was $1,200. Is that right, Mr. Johnson? What was the project dollar amount for the dock?
Approximately $2,400.
$2,400. So we did. And then again, that was the importance of hearing, that there was a public participation by way of people saying it's not where we wanted it, it's not what was the vision. So yeah, I hear you, and that's the dance, is public feedback. That's the important link. And I think that that's what's being encouraged here about having that public feedback.
That it is actually starting to happen.
Yes.
Lessons learned is always like, let's just do it and we'll do the consequences later. So lessons learned is a lovely thing, but maybe let's do something proactively before we have to learn our lessons.
That's right. But you have to acknowledge the lesson, right?
Yep.
So you make sure that you implement it differently.
But
So does that help address some of the questions you brought
Some of the
forward?
questions, other than the fact that there was funding in place for the sidewalk, but then all of a sudden the funding, I know that there was an extension needed maybe or required for the sidewalk to be put into place, but the funding, I was under the understanding at the meeting I was at, that the funding was in place already from Valley Pride to do the sidewalk, but it didn't seem to transfer over to a dock.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know why that.
Because it fell under, and Mr. Johnson, I think you want to confirm with this, is that it was felt that by staff it would come under an operational, which is why there actually wasn't even a council motion that was endorsed.
Okay, thank you. And what is the cost then going to be for the future of maintenance? I requested that and I haven't gotten back on that, what maintenance was going to be every year on that.
I haven't seen anything formal come in. If you write a letter to the corporate officers, we'll make sure you get a response to your questions.
Corporate officer, okay, perfect.
Thank you.
And again, thank you so much, and I'm very happy that public engagement might be looked at a little bit differently now and not after the fact, along with the driving down Dutch Lake and stuff.
Yeah, right. We all feel that. I also do want to point out one thing is that there have been people who've said, why don't you have meetings in the evening? When this council, actually it was the last council, they had actually addressed that, and they put in meetings in the evenings, and they put that in to see who might be able to participate. We did it, I believe, it was a 6-month time period.
6 months, yeah.
And we did not have a lot of uptake with that.
I agree,
And then
yeah.
we had to evaluate is when you look at, staff time, consultants time, and all of that to have evening meetings when people didn't attend.
Yeah.
That was a financial decision. We said no. So I want to make it very clear that that was something that we put out there. I do think it's an interesting idea about how do you do it on different days or something like that. It is always the question of how do you engage. And I think that we had discussed here today about ways to go out to the community to really utilize the expertise and thoughts of our community differently. And I think that you will see that.
Could we perhaps take the Clearwater newspaper that comes out every month and say, this is what we're doing, this is what is coming up?
I believe we've got a column in there and it's what's happening, or has that been discontinued? We actually do have a column in there that's what's happening in the newspaper.
Like, not necessarily what happened or whatever, but these are things that we're looking at this next,
There was,
a little bit more, because we don't know the results of things. I can't be at every meeting, or I should be here getting paid with along you guys, right? Because it is a lot of time, like you said, for you guys and everybody else here. So it would be nice to have something solidify in your newsletter saying, this is what we've done.
Yeah, and I think that that's summarized under council highlights in the newsletter.
I didn't see anything about, maybe I missed the newsletter, but I didn't see that Dutch Lake was gonna get all these zigzaggy and all these lines. That should have been
That's part of the
something in there.
traffic pattern, and there's been a lot of attention to it. It comes, as you saw in the operations plan, it is titled under different things.
But it's still council news that this is what we're gonna see. Guess what?
Yep,
Get
and
people excited about it
that's
or
the
not
communication that
excited
we
about
have
it.
to.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the communication piece that you're asking for, as is council.
And I think maybe the Clearwater newsletter might be something that might be a good venue to do so. Yeah. Okay,
Definitely something we'll look into.
okay.
Perfect.
I
Thank you,
will
Ms.
do that.
Grimm.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate that. And thank you guys for being here.
Thank you. Anyone else out there? Okay, we got in camera, we got to move into here, so there's a recommendation that the meeting be closed to the public pursuant to section 91 of the community charter to discuss matters relating to labor relations or employee relations. Seconder. Moved by Councilor Bratton, second Councilor Frizzle. All in favor? And let's take 5 minutes while everyone clears out and I gotta stand up.